if you say question, that means we need help.
Right.
Okay, we're about to start. Okay. What up, y'all? I am Gia Casey, and this is a special edition of the Casey Crew. It is an all-girls authors book club in honor of my new book coming out, Real Life, Real Love, Life Lessons on Joy, Pain, and the Magic That Holds Us Together. So these are my real-life friends who had the assignment of reading the book. Some of them just finished as late as last night. So we haven't discussed anything about the book. And we are going to do it here live today with you guys as our audience so that we can kind of take you on, I don't know, this little girl's journey through the book and all of the material in it. So now I get, what's funny about that? So I'm going to get to pick their brains, because if you guys have been following our podcast, you know that I am dying. I'm chomping at the bit for feedback, because I want to know how it affects people. And these are my girls who can be honest with me and let me know the effect that it had on them. So first what I'm going to do is start by letting all of my friends introduce themselves and let you know how we're acquainted, how we know each other, how we become friends. So we'll start with Chilka.
Oh, hi. I'm still fixing myself over here. So I guess unofficially met you at the kids' birthday party that you had when they were 4 and 5. Maybe?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. And then after we kind of lost some years, and then we regained our friendship during COVID, when I became unofficial KCPA.
Yes. For those who don't know, let them know what a PA is.
Physician associate. And everything to do with COVID and health and, concierge medicine. And then we just became friends, and you became my therapist, and here we are.
Okay, sounds good. Ingrid.
So you were pregnant with London when we met through our good friend Dia. Yeah, we hit it off from like day one, like the first couple hours. We spent like 5 hours in the car talking. I'm typical. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning, typical. I should have known that.
Y'all trying to say something?
No,
Y'all trying to say something?
Almost the same story.
And yeah, she immediately became like my go-to. Fast forward, my big sister, therapist, confidant. Like, she knows me in out, the good, the bad, the ugly. And she is my son's godmother.
Yes.
And
Her son is my only godchild. My little Cammy Chew.
And it will be like that forever.
So Heather, this is Heather.
I also met Gia at her baby shower. We were pregnant with Brooklyn. And we had mutual friends, a few mutual friends. And they were like, oh, it's going to be a lot of people. You should just come. You'll love Gia. You guys will get along great. We talked, and you were at STK, and you were eating everything. I have a picture of you with the table. There's like steak and potatoes and vegetables. And I was like, oh, sitting with you. She's like, no, this is all mine. Did
I eat it all?
And you ate all of it. I was like that little person. When you were pregnant with Brooklyn, it was that baby shower.
But she doesn't eat that even if she's not pregnant.
I know that.
Yes.
I know that now, because when we went to Crystal Springs, she was like, we're going to the steakhouse window and all of this. I was like, oh, we're family style. She's like, you can, but this is mine.
You can try it.
Then, same thing. We had another mutual friend. We were at a birthday dinner, and he was like, oh, I'll drop you to your car. We sat, and it's the stars on the roof. We sat in her car and talked for like hours. I'm like, it's like 4 a.m. I'm like, don't you have to go back to Jersey? But we talked, and like, COVID and the years went by, but we've gotten to see each other several times through other friends' things, and always great vibes, always great energy. And then I just know that every time I talk to Gita, time just goes away. Like hours could go by, and everything that we're talking about is just like, and you feel so in touch. And this girl wants to know everything. It's not just like, oh, okay, great, nice to talk to you, or bye. She wants the like nitty gritty.
Because I care.
Yes, genuinely. And it was one of those first times when you're like, okay, of my friendship circle, a lot of times you feel like the big sister. I was like, this is one of those times you're like, oh wow, I really feel seen. You know, and it was from a new friend at the time. So it's been years. I don't know how many years that was, but it was a star-studded affair at this baby shower. But I really felt like Gia just sat and talked to me like we've known each other forever.
Can I just say, I knew when you were going to be somebody important to me when I called you that day and was like, I don't know what I'm doing with these shoes. Can you come to the city with me?
Oh,
and we went to the city to try on some shoes. And you like turned to where I was driving. You turned towards me and were like, so why do you think you felt that way? And I was like, oh damn. I was like, one time at 5 years old. Like she has a way to look at you and look into your soul and you just want to tell her everything. I'm like, so I just know that if I'm gonna go to Gia's, I know I'm gonna be there. I can say I'll come back in 2 hours. But I know I gotta get dinner ready, have my pajamas out, make sure they have instructions for the next morning because I will be there for hours. I call it the Casey crew trap.
True. Atlanta. We sat in that room all day. All day.
Yeah. We were supposed to be at the car show.
We were supposed to be doing a lot. We were supposed to be helping.
Yeah.
I tried to help. She said they don't need you.
That's how she's lying. She's lying. You believe Steven? Come on now.
I'm lying.
Come on now. That never happened.
She's dirty.
I whipped up my laptop. I started doing work.
Nah, I said, should I go help? I said, should I go help? No, if they needed you, they'll call you. You're here for me. Did you not say that? You were supposed to go shop. Don't lie. Anyway, how do we know you Mercedes?
I didn't hear you.
I was trying to distract her.
Y'all silly. Well, if you guys don't know, I met Gia through coaching Logan in Madison. I was their basketball coach. So here comes Gia in the gym, all decked out as she looks. I'm like, where's mama? Strutting through.
I was strutting though.
Yeah, she was strutting. No, she wasn't strutting through. But, quiet in the stands, but I met them through coaching them. So, and then Gia basically got me this job with Boss. If nobody knows, she was the one who called me and told Boss that he needs to hire me to be his assistant.
It's like, yes, you're hiring Ben.
And he was like, what? And I also said, excuse me? Is there training for this position? She's like, no, you'll be fine. I'm like,
this is a probationary.
So I actually texted him then and she was just like, yeah, no.
I was like, his only qualifications is that you're smart, you're a hustler, and you love money.
And I'm like,
and you had all three. So
she gonna get to it.
It was a match made in heaven.
It has been. So
Gia will find a way to keep you around. She's like, okay, yes, I think you need to be in the. You're here. You have a job. You're doing it.
That's very true.
I can see people's qualities and talents. Yes. So let's talk book now that we are all acquainted. All right. So it's going to be an open conversation. We can just talk about whatever. But I'll start with the first question. After reading the book, who do you feel is the book's audience? Who do you feel that the book speaks to? It doesn't have to be just one audience, but who do you think stands to benefit the most by reading the book?
Men.
Men.
Mm-hmm.
Why men?
So
And wait, before you answer, I'm particularly interested because when you think about a book about love, and I just finished having this conversation with Rashaan on the previous podcast where I was asking him questions, women tend to pick up a book about love.
Right.
You don't see a man perusing through Barnes and Noble's like, let me find you a good book on love and relationships. They're finding books on career, money managing, financing, business, etc.
Right.
So you think that men stand the best. So explain why.
Reading the book, reading how you get both perspectives. You get Gia's and you get Rashaan's. And knowing both of them, I know most of Gia's. I know Rashaan's. I also know Rashaan's through her side. Mm-hmm. Reading his and how he talks about, men and just how to love their women, coming clean about any indiscretions that they might be holding in. Black men as a father, I think a lot of men would benefit from this coming from somebody in the industry, not just, Ann Poe or somebody that they wouldn't really be interested in. I think a lot of men, have sensitive sides and they wouldn't want to be seen at Barnes and Nobles picking up the love a love story. But I think this is a book that caters to everyone. And a man could sit there like, oh, my girl got the book, so I just read it. But they would want to pick it up because it has, and we have men that watch the podcast. You know, so I think men, they would benefit from
What do you
this.
think they have to gain?
How to find themselves, how to dig within themselves to see like who they are, who they want to be. You know, I think, you know, women also, but I feel like a lot of times if a man isn't right with himself, he can't be good to anyone else. If he's not right mentally, financially, stability where he lives, he's not going to be able to give a woman what she needs or desires from him. And I think something like this would allow a man to say like, shit, he comes from Queens. They didn't believe in him. Little DJ gig, like, you know, this is something that if I put my mind to it, if I want to be the best version of myself, you know, this would help navigate that. Even people now want to be in real estate. Like he talks about how he started from when he bought his first house and then no jack shit. I think this is a great avenue for men to be able to, you know, help them find themselves, I guess, in a way. And I believe that Gia speaks for, if not all, but most women, from her mind bleeping to just reading her perspective. I think they'll get a better idea of whatever females that they're dealing with at the time.
I agree. And to piggyback off of what you're saying, there was one part in the book that I liked that said, healthy relationships have healthy people. So for me, I think the book is geared towards anyone. Because everyone went through a stage of life from childhood to now, and growth has happened. So to me, my favorite part is the common denominator, and it made me look like within.
Right.
So to me, being single, female, there's a lot of aspects in the book to piggyback off of men reading the book.
Yeah, she's referring to a part of the book that is called most common denominator, the least common denominator. And pick up the book, you'll see what it's What about you, Heather?
I tend to completely agree with them both. You know, my first perspective would be to say, the question was, who is the audience? The audience is everyone. Even I could see myself as a young girl reading this, and some of the insights that you give about your own securities and where your values lie in your own physical appearance. As somebody told me these stories and had read your story at 18, 19, 21 and saw what happened and how at that age you could transcend into what was important about yourself from the outward to the inward would have been transcendent for me at that age. And the way you talk about pouring into your children at this adult age, fast forward 10, 20 years. But when you talk about an audience, anybody could grow from that. But when I talk about who I think should, I agree with Ingrid, because as a man, there was a lot of vulnerability and realness and sincerity and sensitivity that we don't get to see from men like us. Right. The men that we are encountered with, our brothers, our uncles, our fathers, our friends, the guys we date, don't bear themselves in that way. Right. And the sincerity of it was like, okay, you can be in this life, but not of it. You can be in this life, but be an original person that's of yourself and create a family. And he says it, the constant teaching of misogyny and all these other things. And he made a path that was completely different, not without fail at times. But I think men can see, okay, you can have an image, you can have money, you can still be cool and real and have a beautiful family and be real to a woman and be sincere and open and honest.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What do you think, Shelton?
No, I agree. I think it's good for it. It's not, so not the title, but the persona of the book can be a little deceiving, right? It's not just about relationships. It's about the way you guys grew up, your individuality. So I think anybody can benefit from the book. I mean, you throughout the book, you mentioned if you're single, if you're about to be married, if you're divorced, if you are happily married, if you're not happily married. Like there's so many different situations.
Right.
And you have specific details, but it's so vague enough that everybody can relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree that it's not just a relationship book. It's not just a lovey-dovey. Oh, these are the 10 commandments that you should follow to have a perfect marriage. It's not, you know what I mean? Like it's not robotic.
It's just the opposite.
Right. It's actually the absolute opposite.
Yeah.
Right.
And when I called you and told you like what I thought of the book in the first place, I said you have a lot, like it's so authentic to who you guys are that knowing you felt weird reading it. Like I don't know how this all this I read, right?
Right.
But knowing you guys and
You know the other half.
well, no. So listen. So even when so okay, guys. So when I finished, let me talk to the camera. When I finished the book, I text both of them. I was like, I just finished. It was a great book. I get a call first in the morning. Yeah, you finish it? Call me when you get a chance. I'm like, okay, I'll call you. And then he's like, yo, you finished it? What'd you think? So I gave a book report to both of them separately because I couldn't do it together. But I told him as well, I'm like, it was great to see your perspective because me and him, we talk about cars and COVID and just random big conversations where you and I spend 5 hours at a time.
Right.
So it was interesting to see his perspective on growing up, being in a relationship with you from the beginning, how his insecurities played in his role as Rashaan and DJ Envy, family man, real estate, like everything in his life. And I think, like Ingrid said, it would help a lot of men kind of get out of their heads and say, okay, well, I can relate to this, or I can relate to this, and learn from it and kind of look at themselves and say, okay, maybe I can do all this that I want to.
So what do you think is in their heads? If it'll help men get out of their heads, right? What do you think is in their heads?
Well, like Heather said, I think there's a certain path that's like drilled into people's heads, right?
Mm-hmm.
How society looks at them, how they look at society, how they think. Like he said in the book, his way of growing up and what was drilled into him was protect and provide, and that was it. Those are the two things that he had to do to be a man, right? Mm-hmm. And over the course of time and being with you and learning around from his surroundings, he learned that those other aspects that made a man, right? So I think it'll change the way men and even women, but mostly men will think what their role as a man in society should be. Mm. And that's okay to kind of step out of what's thought to be the only role they should have.
You got it.
I think men would even relate to him, even from like the mental health, the suicidal thoughts, the if I lose her, I lose everything. Some people feel like that. I never meet nobody like that.
Admit that.
But I meaning like I never met anyone, like I never dated anyone that was like, I'm not like I've never had that, so to see how powerful that is, how one person and her life-changing decision, how it would diminish everything that he's ever worked for. Just I'll drop everything right now. We will live in a shack as long as you stay my wife. Like that's powerful, And I think men, they might feel like that, but their ego, their pride, like she's not gonna tell. So I think that's powerful.
It broke down a lot of stereotypical barriers from our men, right? Mm-hmm. Of how you accumulate wealth. It's the assumption that we have, no matter how much we've accomplished on our own, is that if you're a Black man and you're successful, you had to have gotten it this way.
Right.
And in the book, he tells, this is how I got it. And this is, and you can get it too, and it doesn't have to be something illegal or irresponsible. And then just Blackness. You can be light skinned and you can be a family man and still be very much Black and raise Black children in affluence. There's several levels of stereotypical barriers to what we think that kind of Black family is and was and came from and the background. And, you know, you can grow up in Queens, New York and still have two parents on both sides and have a loving familial base to then grow children into that. And the other thing, when you're really focusing on men, I did have that. And it made me think I had a man who threatened to kill himself or didn't want to live if we weren't going to be together. And I'm in my early 20s at this point. New Yorker, very similar situation, attractive, but very insecure. Tell me what I could wear and where I could go. And I think when I'm reading this and I'm like, wow, what if should I have been more patient? Because to me, I had knew enough and read enough and I was a little older. You guys had 10 years in at that point. It felt like abuse. But what if I had known a little less? What if I had stayed a little longer? What
if he changed?
What if he changed? Could that situation have turned out like this? It started sparking questions for me of men and what it meant to be a Black man and that vulnerability.
To answer your question, for you, it came across to you in your interpretation as abuse. For me, it never came across that way.
Yeah.
Even though it was emotional abuse. The last 2 podcasts ago, I said that I was too immature and ignorant to diagnose it as abuse because I was too busy being flattered by what Ingrid is saying that she never got. Because in a sense, when someone they come across you as though they're willing to go to the ends of the earth just to keep you. And I can't live if you weren't right here by my side.
Skip work.
I'll skip work. I'll quit.
Forget Richie.
I'll do anything. It doesn't matter.
I'd rather not work. Stay home and watch you.
Because it comes across as I need you. Mm-hmm. And who doesn't want to feel needed?
Yeah.
And I felt that way. It is ill-advised.
Yeah.
It is not good. It is not something that young girls or women should seek. It is not good. I just want to be clear that it is not good. But when you're young and you're not wise, it comes across as like an ego stroke.
Yeah.
Like you are you can't be duplicated. I felt like I'm the only one that can make him feel that way. Mm-hmm. So there's a power.
It was powerful.
It was powerful.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I felt that the love that he had for me was powerful.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
100%.
But it can be dangerous. In your sense, in your situation, whatever it was that your senses alerted to that felt like abuse, that's how it came across you. For me, I was never scared of Rashaan.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Whatever he was communicating to me was with a vulnerability. Mm-hmm. I felt sorry for him.
Yeah.
And I also knew at that young age that it came from a place of insecurity. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to save him in a lot of ways. I wanted to help him. I wanted to grow him into a better, secure person that felt loved and that understood that I loved him. And even though you're the underdog in so many situations that probably bred that insecurity, I want to be your rock.
Yeah.
I do want to be your everything. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
And gave that security. I'm the constant you can count on.
Exactly. I want to be your soft place to live. Do you know what I mean? And I felt that I could build him up. So I didn't feel abused, even though by definition it is emotional abuse, because at times I did in fact feel manipulated. You know, and I go into depth about that in the book. I did feel manipulated. I felt as though he knew that I loved him and that no matter what, I put the people that I love in my life first. And I come second. Because I can do that. Like I'm strong enough to do, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that. You know? Yeah. And he, I knew that he really couldn't. Mm-hmm. And I knew that he could benefit from it, but he knew even better than I knew. And I felt as though he took advantage of that when he could, because he knew that it devastated me to see him hurt.
Yeah. And you're such a nurturer and you're so giving of it. And I mean, two things. There was one part in the book, and you guys have to read this, where you're dressed to go out and you were all ready to go, and he puts you in the shower.
Yeah.
The same thing, I was dressed to go out, and there was a gallon of milk over my fresh doobie.
I gave myself a fresh doobie that day.
I had just gone, my pins, I had just taken my hair down from the pins, and he poured a gallon of milk over my head. And it reminded me of everything, you being fully dressed in the shower. And another theme that I'm sure you'll get to that I think made a difference for me is you talk so much about your mother and your safety net in your mother. And I think having your mother allowed you to be that rock for him. So you could absorb see his insecurities, see his need. And I remember feeling that way. And there was so many parallels for me. I was like, if I could just help him, if I could just save him, if I could just show him. But by then, I had just lost my mother. And it was a couple years, like a year before. So I just didn't have the strength to say, there's no safety net for me that I had to be the safety net for you. So it felt more like abuse and unsafe. That was the key word you said. You never felt afraid of Rashaan.
No.
And I felt afraid. Had my mother been alive, I felt like I would have been stronger. And because I knew she would have come through with the steel toes and kicked everyone's ass. So I could afford to fuck around with you and go through your insecurities and your bullshit. And what would it have been like now for me had that story been different? Because I thought I was done. 24 years old, 25. I was going to marry this man. We were going to have kids. That was it. And what would that story been like? While it was abuse, and we recognize that, had I had more of a strength behind me to exercise that patience, would it have come out on the other side more closer to your story?
My opinion, if it registered as abuse to you,
Then no.
then no.
Because there would have been resentment.
There would be resentment and there would be a continuation of what felt like abuse
That's
to
brilliant.
you.
That's brilliant.
And he would have just one-upped it, right? Because he would have been like, oh, well, I can get away with this. I can do this.
It would have
Because he would have been comfortable
Exactly.
in it. And that comfort would only grow.
Yeah.
And more than likely gotten worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I feel that with Rashaan and I don't feel as though it ever got worse. It was always like on one plane. And then it was like cyclical. It was like the same types of manipulation, the same types of, but again, even though it was abuse, I never felt abuse. I was annoyed. I was fed up. I was tired of going through the same thing. Tired of the same conversations, tired of the same promises, tired of the begging, tired of the crying, tired of that. But I never once felt fear. I never felt like, okay, one day this might escalate to where he puts his hands on me or physically hurts me. I never looked in his eyes and saw that type of anger or hatred. When I looked in his eyes, I saw more hurt. I saw more like of that need. So those things triggered in me, I can help you because I love you that much. I can be patient with you. But if I felt threatened, I wouldn't have exercised that patience.
Yeah.
Because I'd be too being worried about myself.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So no, I don't think that, I think you did the right thing in your situation just solely based on how you felt. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, for sure.
So, okay. So now my next question for you guys is, what part of the book best related to any of you in any of your current love situations or past love situations? Like what spoke to you the most?
Bleep.
The mind bleep?
I've been mind bleeped.
She's mad too.
So first let me explain in a brief way what a mind bleep is. That is a whole big explanation of, what it is, where it starts, and how it grows in a relationship. But a mind bleep is a situation, and you guys know, if you're podcast listeners, you know what this is. You're in a situation and you were born with your own God-given sense and scruples. and you know something to be true, but the person that you are with is adamant about convincing you that you are wrong, that you are crazy, that you have remembered something wrong, that they wasn't there at that time with that bitch. And and I did say this in the book, and it's something that my father would say from time to time, given situations like, now you gonna believe me or your lying eyes? And then it's kind of like,
Right.
I believe you. I don't know why these eyes remind me. Of course I'm all the damn time. They're just here to spite me. Do you know what I mean? It's that situation. With their lying eyes. You know? It's like,
That is some old black man stuff.
and for all intents and purposes in the book, it's a man doing it to a woman, but a woman can very well
Oh, yes.
do it to a man.
Oh, yes.
But it's when you abandon all of your sensibilities and are led to believe in untruth through manipulation, in some cases like coercion, you know? So explain.
Just dating and that woman intuition, you know, when you know something but there's no proof, and you start, you know, asking questions, but you ask the right questions. You know, it's like I've never asked a question that I don't know the answer to. I just need you to confirm what I already know, what I feel. And it was that, the lies, like, what are you talking about? It's in your head, you know. Oh, you be listening to people. Who you been talking to? Who you been talking to?
Oh, they just jealous. Oh, they just jealous.
Right? They jealous, or it just be different things. And I was even told years ago, you ain't never gonna find no one better than me. I've been told that. You know,
maybe over time you get told that enough and you start to believe it.
So
that's a mind
everyone else will cheat on you.
I was 21.
Do you know how lucky you are?
I was
Did you say? I don't know. I tried that one. Yeah, no.
I was 21 being abused.
Yeah.
You know, physically abused, and I was too young to know any better. You know, I thought, you know, love me one day out the week and beat me 6. That one day will carry me for the next 6 beatings. I didn't understand that then. I understand that now. How it's the apology that comes afterwards. Like, you made me do this. I don't want to do this to you, Ingrid. I love you. Like, it's just so many things that came with it. And
Complete mind bleeping.
Complete mind bleeping. Hold on. For perspective, I'm going to reiterate. You made me do this to you.
You made me do this.
Oh gosh, that's a strong one right there.
It was my fault. And you start to believe that.
Had I not said what I said, how I said it?
I remember.
The action to reaction.
But I remember it went as far as I got punched in the mouth where my bottom tooth cracked the top of my lips. I had like a little hole. It was weird. I called his mother. His mother came. I'm bleeding. What did you do, Ingrid? Like, yes, it was like.
What did you do to make my son punch you in the mouth?
It was like, what did I do? Like, after his mom is asking me that question, like, I was getting mind bleed by him and his mama.
Well, that's because if you think about it, his mother was already mind bleed into thinking that an abused woman has to do something
and be deserving to do it,
and deserve that abuse.
Right.
Yeah, he grew up
why
watching
my son
it.
all riled up.
Right.
Right.
That's deep question.
And
Yes.
to that point, reading the book, it's easy to not villainize Rashaan. You know, when you're reading some of these things and you're with a different tone and a different caveat, told in a different voice, you might be like, oh, that shit's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I would never. Oh, hell no.
Right.
But with the vulnerability, openness, and the honesty, these are humans telling human stories
Right.
of people we know. These are good people.
Right.
So it's important to have these conversations so that this wide audience of young men or more established men can say, okay, I can realign myself to retrain my thoughts to channel that energy into a positive situation.
It was important the way the book was written to have both perspectives on the same topic, right?
Right.
Because like she said, we only know, for the most part, know your version of everything you spoke in the book. But to hear his point of view was like, oh, all right, I see you. Okay, all right. You know what I mean? So, and it gave perspective for everybody to kind of think just in their own boxes, but even outside of their own boxes, and get other people's perspective on stuff.
It kind of is like the saying, there's three sides of a story.
Right.
Your side, my side,
And
and
what
the
really
truth.
happened.
And if I'm your friend, right, and I tell you a story from my perspective, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be on my side. But if you never met me, and Rashaan is your friend, and he tells you the story from his perspective, you're going to be on his side, because our personal stories are told with a certain amount of zhuzhing and special sauce, that is going to lead whoever's the recipient of this information in one direction.
Right.
So the book does give 2 different contexts, and it exemplifies the human experience, and where this book would have been beneficial to me as a young adult. When I was a young adult, I was so black and white, and I had never acknowledged the gray. I never acknowledged it. Either you're right or you're wrong. Either it's left or it's right.
That comes through. That really comes through. And you see where it shifted.
Yes, you see where it transitions into, whoa, there is gray. Everything isn't as cut and dry.
God in the gray.
And there's God in the gray.
And
that's a good way to
see
put it.
how uncomfortable you were when you were first put into that zone.
I was so uncomfortable. We're referring to a part of the book where God, in a very strong way, came into my life, into our life, into the life of my family. And I was like, what? Like,
But the responses that you gave were hysterical. Like, what you mean? You hear people? You hear voices? What?
Yeah, because I didn't understand
The
God
spirituality
in that
of it.
way. And
Right.
I was not spiritual. I believed in God because I went to school.
I think most people.
I believed in God, but it wasn't from a personal place. It wasn't because of any of my experiences. My mother told me that God existed, but my father, and this isn't in the book, but my father was an atheist. My father did not believe in God, and this is a whole other story that I'm not going to go into just because we don't have the time, and it's too precious of a story to me to skim over. But it isn't in the book either. But my dad did not accept God until he was on his deathbed.
Wow.
Which was crazy, and which is another one of those experiences that lets me know that there's a God. All right, I'll tell you a little bit more of it, just because it is important to me.
And
just a little
that's
bit.
the one question I had. Remember, was
Really?
about God, because the point where you saw a clear and present change in both of you. The God came in the gray for you.
Right.
All of a sudden, you weren't so finite about everything.
Right.
And the God came for Rashaan, where he started to think outside of his own insecurities and an existence beyond whatever his mind was set on in that frame. So I'll let you get into it, but that's the one question I had for you is how you find God in whatever that means to you and apply it to your own betterment of your relationships and your own personal life.
Well, I did say in the book, God came into my life in a way where he didn't just knock on the door, but he kicked the door down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I had to accept that God is trying to make himself readily available to me and to let me know that I needed him.
Right. And not only one time, he bust that door down twice.
Yes.
You were not listening the first time he came down.
And I think he knows.
Silently.
You know what, to be honest with you, I think my
But it's like, all right.
I think
So
my
Jay
whole
listening.
life, I think my whole life he might have been knocking,
And you didn't
but
hear it.
I was too inept
Those too much
to
other noise
hear
around it.
anything.
It was just noise.
It was just noise.
Right.
I didn't have the wherewithal to understand what that light knock was. So I think at one point he was like, I have to do what I have to do to get this girl's attention. And I was speaking to someone the other day who's an atheist, and this person I've had many conversations with in the past.
And he's a stubborn person. And not that I blame him, but he hasn't found footing in his own understanding. And I had to tell him, I'm like, listen, logically, I understand why you don't believe. Yes, why do babies suffer? Why do babies die? Why are children dying every day in an apartment fire, etc.? I don't believe that there's a God. How can there be a God, a real God, a loving God, a caring God, a God that is for his children, would never let this happen, etc., etc.? It's hard to argue against those forms of reasoning. Before, I wouldn't have been able to. Before, I'd have been like, yeah, maybe you got a point. I don't know. I mean, I believe, but hey, you never really know, you know?
I have no proof either. I have no
That
proof.
might have been my stance
That's true.
12, 13 years ago. You know what I mean? But to disarm me from those frames of thought, God has done things for me that was like, here, Gia, here's your little dose of knowing. So I'll tell you a little bit about my dad, right? So my dad, as far as I can remember, for his entire life, has always been an atheist. And we would sit down. I remember being 8, 9, 10, 11, and sitting in his den. And we would sit there and talk for hours, 4 or 5 hours. Hey, maybe that's where I get it from.
I was just gonna say, that explains everything.
Yes.
4 or 5 hours, and he would answer all my questions and whatnot. And I remember having a very specific conversation. I might have been 9 or 10 at the time about his atheism. And I remember asking him, so what about those people that you hear about that they're on their deathbed and they see that light at the end of the tunnel?
Wow.
And God appears and God comes to them and they have this super normal experience. And, you know, it's like they come back and they're like, I've seen God and God pulled me out of this coma. And God, as my witness, my father said something to me that I only halfway understood, but his explanation went something like this. Well, it has something to do with the firing of the synapses in the brain. When you're,
Wait, what?
when you're unconscious.
Did you ever learn about synapses?
Wow.
Because maybe another 6 or 7 years later, I learned about the synapses.
I'm about to say,
and
are they
firing the neurons or
He spun around her with science.
with science and
whatever.
medicine.
Yes.
He's like, they fire, and that can be like a light that you might see when you're in a coma, and because your brain activity. It said there was this whole scientific explanation, which gave it meant something to me because my father was a genius. He was literally brilliant. His IQ he tested as a genius, you know. So that gave me, knowing that, just gave so much credit to anything that came out of this man's mouth. And I'm like, oh, damn, them damn synapses. Like, you know, it was like, I'm like, oh, so maybe that's why it happens. So then, fast forward another maybe 9 or 10 years, I'm 19. And my father, one day, he's absolutely fine. And I walk past that den that he was always in, that we had all these conversations, and I hear wheezing. And I peek my head and I'm like, hey, Dad, what's up? You good? He was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm just having, I don't know, I'm like wheezing. I don't know. I'm like, okay. I'm going to check on you in 5 minutes. I check on him in about maybe another 5 minutes, and he's still wheezing, but the wheezing was a little bit stronger. And I said, this doesn't feel right. Like, how's your breath? He's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, you're not good. And my father and my mother, they were literally my best friends. Like, we talk. I could tell my parents anything. I could tell them anything. My parents, I wasn't raised in a household where you can't go and talk to them, you know, or you have to be afraid to tell them. So I could tell my parents anything, you know? And I said to him, I'm like, you know what? I'm calling an ambulance. And he's like, yeah, no. I called an ambulance. My brother and my mother rode in the car behind the ambulance. I rode in the ambulance with my father because he was like like my father was. And we get there. They tell me that it might be a slight case of pneumonia. He should be out of the hospital in 2 or 3 days. He never made it out of the hospital. He went in, that was Christmas Eve, and he passed away on February 19th. I was in college, and I was actually in college when it happened. But my mother told me that one day she went to go and visit him with one of his friends, a woman that he worked with. Her name was Jane Osborne. And it was like one of his only like really good friends. And they went, and my father was in an induced coma. And they brought him out of that induced coma so he could visit with my mother and his friend. When he came out, he said to my mother, Norma, there is a God. Mama said,
What?
You woke up.
Can you turn down his drugs, please?
And he said that he had an experience while he was under, and he is here alive to tell her that there is a God.
Yeah.
Now, my mother wasn't particularly spiritual. So I don't think that that meant the world to her, because she never got to where I got to. You understand what I'm saying? I think she was told that so that she could tell me.
Yeah.
So that I could know that my father was saved and that he's in heaven.
Also,
Because
that's the brilliance. You had resided in my father's brilliant. What he says is the gospel.
yes.
And if he's saying that there's no God, okay, I believe in him. But if now before he goes, he told you there is a God.
Yeah.
And he told your mother so that she could tell you there is a God, so that you could release that and go to that.
Because let me tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. Being where I am now, had my mother not told me that, had he not shared that with her, I would be tormented.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would be alive believing that my father is in hell.
Yeah.
I would be tormented. Tormented. Because that's how much my faith means to me now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that my father died an atheist and didn't accept God. I'm being so real with you. I don't know how I would be able to function day to day thinking that my father is in eternal hell. Do you know what I mean?
That's one of the questions I had for you, because I did grow up in the church. My father went to Catholic school. My mother grew up in the church. So I remember being a child coming home with such anxiety, because even though my dad had been an altar boy and gone at adulthood, he stopped going. So my mom and I would go. And then at one point, nobody went. It was just me. I used to go with the neighbor. And then I would come home petrified that my dad was going to hell as a child because he wasn't going to church. And my dad would say things like, listen, I was an altar boy for all these years. I went to Catholic school.
I'm good in his
I went to
books.
Catholic college. He's like, me and
He got-
were good.
Yo.
He used to say it all the time. And then my mother, I think she got more active in the church as I got older socially.
Mm-hmm.
She's president of the women's club, and she did the jazz brunches and all these things. So for me, once I went to college, I'm like, I'm not going to church as much. But my faith and my spirit got so much stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm not going to church, my relationship with God got leaps and bounds stronger than it ever was when I was faithfully going to church.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like and part of that's intuition and having two dead parents. Our stories are very similar, just reversed when we lost our parents. But the same, my father was my very best friend. But you get to see in the book, for you, the loss of your parents and the entrance of God in a way allowed you to release control.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it increased my need for control. So that was a curiosity of mine when you felt like your dad had given you permission to find God. And then Rashaan and Rashid came and you guys really, really said, okay, this faith has to happen. And then all of a sudden you were able to release that control, find those gray areas, and you guys were stronger on the other side of it. For me, it was releasing religion, and I gained more control over my life. I felt like because it's almost like the battery in my back.
Mm-hmm.
So now I can control more. And it's a weird juxtaposition, you know, you're like, that's a place I hope to get back to, where you're just completely letting go and saying, okay, you know what? It's out of my hands. It's above me
Yes,
now.
I had to let go. You know why? Because I had to recognize that there is not that much coincidence in the world.
Mm.
The way that he's coming at me is a way that was irrefutable.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? He knew that I remembered that specific conversation. Now, we've had conversations about aliens.
Yeah,
We
all the
had
time.
conversations about. There's conversations that I remember. My dad is the reason why I believe in aliens. Yes, I believe in aliens.
Well, that's gonna be a
She's
headline.
low key an
That is
alien.
definitely gonna
The sun is already geared.
She's an alien.
Speaks to aliens.
But God knew that these were conversations I would remember. So what would be the
You've heard the
likelihood?
saying that coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous.
Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What would be the likelihood that this conversation that we had and the way that when he passed, to emulate the same exact conversation that God knew that I remembered? Do you know what I mean? It was God saying, here's this bone, in case you have any doubts.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? In case you have any doubts.
Right,
And for you, did you feel
And
like,
I asked that question. I asked my dad that question.
Yeah.
I asked him, like, what about those people? Because you always hear about the light at the end of the tunnel and the
Mhm.
death
Always.
you did, and he was like,
Do you know-
it's the secret.
He's like, that's BS.
Right.
Okay, people have it to
But
and
he had to come back.
and you
to
know
tell
what? In that same conversation, I also remember asking him about deja vu. You know, and him. Not that this pertains to anything, but hey, I remember in that same conversation him saying that, you know, deja. I'm like, what about when people feel as though they've had the same experience? I said, Dad, like I've had that same thing. Like you feel like I felt
been
this
here.
way.
I've
Not only
been
have I
here.
been here, not only does this room look the same,
This
and you
exact
walked in
moment
that
and
in
said that and
pink
smelled
sweatshirt,
like that.
but
yeah.
I feel right now the way that I feel as though I felt before in this moment. Everything connects. And I remember in that conversation, him telling me that's because your brain at times can record something happening as it's happening, then play it back to you within moments. And it feels like a memory when it's not actually a memory. See, these are just things that I remember in that conversation.
And you're like, okay.
But
That's
he
all that
knew
makes
he
sense.
knew enough.
What?
Well, that's
He knew enough to know that you needed something tangible.
Right.
Right?
Something that was
So, and that kind of transcends through the book, through the two experiences that you had,
right.
where you're like, all right, I hear you. I finally hear you, because he knew you needed something
Right.
that was tangible, something you can grab onto and be like, all right, I got it. I got
Yes.
it. Right.
And
Yes.
the energy that you give is not that it has to be God, church on Sunday,
Right.
Catholic or Baptist or Methodist.
It's your own
no.
individual
It's just
relationship.
It's
Mhm.
connecting to spirit or
Yep.
the universe or Allah, whatever you call it.
It's your own
It's just
personal
getting to the
relationship with
source.
your
Yeah.
personal
Yeah.
God.
Mhm.
Whoever, whatever you call God, it is your personal relationship with that entity.
Yep.
That's all that it is, you know? So, did I answer
You did.
your question? Oh, cool. So, what part of the book best related to you guys, or that resonated the most?
I think I'm gonna agree with Ingrid on the mind bleeping, but I mean, duh.
We're laughing because we know Mercedes.
But I really resonated with New Deal.
Same.
The New Deal?
And not that it pertains to me, but it clicked something in my brain with like patience and communication.
Oh, explain. Wait, first, let me just tell them
Oh,
what
sure.
the New Deal is. The New Deal is a section, where we talk about reparations that have to be made once an offense has taken place.
Mhm.
How do you gain back the beauty of what once existed? How do you repair trust? How
Yep.
do you initiate forgiveness? How do you fix what has been broken by the actions of one?
Right.
I could go into so much
That's
depth.
where I'm at now in my life.
Huh?
That's where I'm at now
You're
in
in
my
the New
life.
Deal.
You're in the
now.
I'm
New
in the
Deal.
New Deal. That's why I resonate with the other one, because I'm still in the New Deal. So
But
I
it's
can't
still
really
pertains.
talk.
I think the book, the New Deal, the New Deal in the book clicked for you.
Yeah.
You're like, you went back and you were like, we talked about it at dinner.
Uh-huh.
You're like, oh no, I think I need to reevaluate my
Right.
deal. Like,
She need a new deal.
Scratch that contract.
I need a brand new
No,
deal.
I absolutely
She's
did.
like, I think that's what I need.
Not to take from what you're gonna say, and I just want to say real quick. I mentioned to Heather, so in my current situation, from couples counseling and just trying to move on and try to get back to what I once had.
Mhm.
I'm like, what is it that I'm missing? Like we're on the road to recovery, but there's something still missing. What is it that is missing? This is me prior to the book. And I said to her, I think I know what it is. I've been told.
Wait, you think you know what it is after you read the book?
Yeah, no, after I read the book, I said, I think I know what I'm missing. And I'm missing it from him. Is an act that I haven't gotten. I got the I'm sorry. I've got the, I mishandled you. But no, you didn't mishandle me.
Wait, let's just not mishandle you physically.
No. Nothing was ever physical. Yes, nothing was ever physical.
Mishandling was a way of...
Mishandle was the term that he used.
I did this.
Right. I mishandled you. I took you for granted. No, you mind bleeped me. You cheated on me. You broke me. You hurt my feelings. You belittled me. You talked about me to your friends. You talked about me to your ex. You did me dirt. And all I wanted to do was love you and have you love me back that much stronger. And I never got the, I'm sorry for doing this and this and this and this.
You got a blanket apology.
I got like, I'm sorry for doing
everything.
All of this.
I mean, the mishandling is almost...
And it was the, everything I said that you was doing. What are you talking about? So it was like you owned up to shit, but I'm still crazy for thinking this and this was happening. Like, just own the fact that I was right on everything and let's move on from that. So I still have that, like, but you won't admit that I was right for my thoughts. I was right for acting irate. It was okay that when we did that couples podcast, the fans that she has annihilated me. Because when I saw myself, I was a little out there. I was.
But it was one side.
It was coming from a place of hurt. It was coming from pain. It was coming from, I was fed up. And then how do I divulge that? Because there's people that don't know.
I dared you in that podcast.
Right.
I didn't even know you then when I saw it.
So now it's I have all of this that now the people with us know about, but the people watching don't know. So they're just looking at it like, oh, no wonder he cheated.
People look at me
And that goes back to her.
What?
Right, oh, Gia's just protecting her.
No.
She's just her lawyer.
How's Gia defending her?
Right.
I'm like, because I know everything.
Right, so there's things
That
that...
goes back to the book where Envy calls her on the radio and says, I wasn't helpful through the pregnancy.
Yeah, that wasn't the issue.
And then you're like, we'll talk about you get home.
Right.
So people are probably like, well, why she couldn't?
Right, but she knew that that's a nice way to cover because he didn't want people in the business. And that's exactly, I need it. I need him to own up to everything, not just give me a blanket, I'm sorry. I need you to run down this motherfucking list.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for those haters who was coming from my friends.
They came for me. Oh, no wonder. Now, bitch is gonna be in his DM now. Try me, bitch. But I realized reading the book, this is what I need. This is why I haven't been able to fully heal. Mm-hmm. I'm on the road to recovery, but there's always something like, why, it's been months, it's been almost a year. We're good, but why can't it just...
It's because the offender doesn't realize how valuable that accountability actually is in the forgiveness process.
Yeah.
They want to just be forgiven. Look, I'm never going to do it again.
Right,
Can't you just forget?
Right.
No, we need to sit down and have a 5-hour conversation about everything that you did to hurt my feelings. And I need you to own up to it. I need you to acknowledge my feelings as a result of those actions. I need you to acknowledge my crazy.
And that I wasn't crazy.
And exactly.
And that I wasn't
what
crazy.
You call crazy.
And
I need you to give me that.
But he's also acknowledged that, right? Because as of now, not taking accountability may still be him saying that, well, my action was a reaction to what you did or what you caused me to do. So in his head, he's still...
I don't want to hear it. No.
I'm saying it's wrong. But he hasn't come to terms with the fact that he just fucked up.
I think at this point, he doesn't want to come, he doesn't want to take accountability because it's going to bring us back to that pain and hurt.
And I think
because we moved so far from it.
Right.
But that's because I don't talk about stuff. I've had to leave a lot of stuff behind because
But
I
you know
can't
that
keep
it'll
bringing
bring
it.
things
But
back out
Ingrid,
of you
the thing
again.
is that you shouldn't be in this present day situation where we're talking about what should have happened in hindsight, what he should have done in hindsight.
Right.
He should have done that at that
time.
And it's not your job to care about how he feels revisiting that. You are owed that because that's instrumental and fundamental for your healing.
Yeah.
And if not, you're always going to circle the drain because you're not getting what you need.
Yeah.
He's getting what he needs. He has you, he has his child, he has the ability to live, as my mom called it, the life of Riley. Don't know who Riley is, but apparently he had an amazing life.
He had a great.
He had a great
Best life.
He's able to do that because he's not affected.
Yeah.
But it leaves you affected in the balance. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I hope that the book does is help women find their strength to demand what it is that they need for their healing and to not feel guilty about it and to not feel as though they don't deserve it. It's owed to you because you were hurt.
You say that in perception isn't reality.
Yep.
And perception isn't reality. You say, or maybe you haven't been speaking up in your relationship because you want it to work.
Right.
But the truth is, those tough conversations, it
helps.
Draws a closer, a bigger sense of intimacy.
Yeah.
And Rashaan says that as well.
Bond.
Yeah. So I
wanted to hear the rest before Ben's. Be like,
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take away from.
If mind bleeping was the most important to you, what perspective? Because our situations are also different,
right?
And that's the beauty of the book, is that it touches so many different types of audiences.
So for me, the mind bleeping is the mind bleeping. We've all been through the mind bleeping, making me feel like it's my fault certain things are going certain ways, right? But the new deal, for me, it was looking at how relationships can heal. And what I mean by that is not only like boss taking accountability for how much you mean to him and how he's going to show you how much you mean to him. And I think that's important because like just what you were saying, it's more like you're expecting more something from him more than I feel like he wants to give you at this moment because he's still in that phase that boss was in. You get what I'm saying? So for me, it's like looking at both sides, seeing Gia's demands and boss's actions and how they matched.
But my demands were kind of like silent demands.
Yeah.
Because at one point he asked me like, what do I need to do?
Right.
And I'm like, oh, no.
You're not giving a cheat sheet.
I am not your teacher.
So what I mean, and what I mean by your demands, exactly.
For yourself.
Yes.
Like you broke this, you
have
to fix it.
And I think that was the healing part for him, where he had to accept. And I think that in your situation is the same way. And for me, it's accepting that a man is going to do as he wants.
Right.
And heal in time because I might want something quicker and I might be like, or I might just like, you know what, forget it. You ain't got to show me no more. I just want you, Right. And it's like, we get frustrated and get upset, but we don't get what we want out of it. And at the end of the day, we're crying and upset in a situation that we don't want to be in anymore. And for me, it was looking at the book and reading and being like, okay, I'm going to take my power back. Yeah. I'm going to own and have uncomfortable conversations and say things that I know inside are right, but I'd just sit there and I'd be like, oh, if I say that, he's probably going to leave. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, and exactly, we've had numerous conversations and you'd be like, and so what? Let him leave.
Get up and get to sleep out.
Exactly.
But that was something big for you because in your situationships, there were times where you're like, this is what I want, but this is what he wants. And I guess it's fine. And I'm like, no.
Right.
We're not going to just give everything he wants. These are big things that you want too. So there were definitely parts in that relationship where you're like giving him that power and you're okay with it. You're okay with potentially moving forward, losing that little piece of you.
Yeah.
So I'm glad this kind of.
Yeah. So the new deal, like I said, it just helped with.
Yeah, I have a lot to talk about come my Wednesday couples counseling session.
I'm sorry, Jason.
Right.
Or Jason. Jason's
No,
like,
but this will
is big.
benefit him.
Of course.
You take accountability. Let's have the uncomfortable talk, because I avoid it a lot of times. Because
We all
after
do.
you had that uncomfortable talk, you could feel the tension with a knife, and I don't want that in my home. I don't want to be in that situation where just kind of like he's over there, I'm over here, because this was. But I have to like cut the shit, and let's just once and for all get back to a good, solid place. Because I'm not gonna get what I used to have because I have a different man. I acknowledge he is not the same person that he once was. He is not that same disrespectful, that person who just, oh, what's wrong with you? Like, oh, shut, like, he doesn't do that to me. He is not that person. And I appreciate that. But now in order to like, let's take this up a notch. Let's revisit a little bit from the past, even though it's going to hurt. And let's just take accountability.
What got you from that to where you are now?
What do you mean?
What got you from disrespect, to him not being that, to being more open? What? Never.
No. I think it's a couple things.
It was fear.
I think it was fear. I think it was me finally. It was me finally finding that power. Because for so long I was the one crying, and what did I do, and how can I do it better, and not knowing my worth. And it wasn't until I gained that power back, and then I just became a little too power hungry.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Oh, you?
Yeah.
It's like having a Reese's Pieces and you're like, oh, this tastes good.
I got power hungry, and I saw, and I saw, she's crazy because she gives me all of it. Like she yells at me for not knowing my worth, and I didn't tell you because I was, kid gloves and blah blah blah. But then when I finally get to a point, she was like, all right, you need to calm down because now you're taking this. Because, right.
Hold on, wait. There's a part in the book where I might have been halfway thinking about you when it was written, because it's, all right, now that you have asserted yourself and you've established who you are and recognized your power, now don't go too far.
Yeah.
Now, don't be abusive.
Mm-hmm.
It very clearly says,
Right.
whoa.
And I was reading that. I was like, that was me. I became abusive.
Do not become abusive.
I took that power
and use it as revenge.
Yes.
Right.
I use it as revenge.
Because this is a part of a human experience. Everything that we do should be the betterment of us.
Yeah.
Not just the betterment of me.
Of me.
I'm half of it. So I have to get all the way right so that I can emulate for you even what to do.
Yeah.
And so that I can be a solid 50%. I can do my part and influence you to do your part. But you can't be counterproductive.
Right.
And abuse it where it starts to revert back to a negative place.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And then he closes up. Because I think that in this book with Boss, that I think a lot of men can learn from is not only his vulnerability, but they might like call him like a sellout or something because of... I'm just being honest. I'm being honest. I think that, but I think they need to read it because even like probably in Jason's situation, it's hard for them to get over that. Because he's like, well, am I going to be corny? Am I going to be, how I'm going to sound in this book? I'm going to sound corny or but it's reality. This is what it's supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? For you to open up and be real. And I think some men might be like, read it, be like, yo, just like with, matching families, everybody, wearing clothes and exposing their families and showing their trophy wives.
Right.
It's like a thing now. And to me, I think y'all started it, but whatever. I think that people are understanding that it's okay.
And that's really important to say because if you don't read the book and you just get snippets or see little bits of it, and I'm going to keep it all the way funky, you might feel like Envy's a simp. Envy's a sucker.
What?
But
Huh?
I could see how
If you
some
only
men
read, yeah.
would see the headlines or the things that he said on the air, on the show, or the headlines of the way the matching outfits. When you go to a very certain, let's just say, hip hop mindset,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
you might say Envy's a simp.
The
Envy's a sucker.
masculinity, the
Mm-hmm.
persona.
When you read the book and he divulges the things he does, there's no sucker there. Like, it's all, this is a real story
It's
from a
humanized.
real black man
Yep.
who lived this real hip hop experience.
And went home to the family.
But it all, and it was so vulnerable and honest that there was no sucker to it. Because you imagine the amount of strength it takes
Exactly
to
my
be a
point.
certain kind of an icon in a way,
Right.
for you too, and to have these eyes on you, and then say, "We're going to tell this story, and it's going to be the realest version of it, and you'll figure it out,
Mhm.
however you figure it out."
Right.
But even me with a skeptical eye, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, no, and I'm like, "Ooh, his feet was dangling from the thing," like. But
She loved that part.
She loved that part.
She been talking about that
I
part.
was in the shower. I read a chapter. I got in the shower, cracked up. I came back. I read it again, and then I asked Ingrid, "Did you hear the part when he said his feet was dangling from the car?" But it was like, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, no, there's no sucker here. Like, I wish that more black men felt comfortable to have the space, to have the conversations, because then we call them weird when little tidbits come out about these things.
Yes.
But if you knew the whole story,
Right.
then you wouldn't think them weird, because this is the human experience.
Yes.
We all go through.
I think the biggest themes that you see from the beginning of the book to the end is the passion that you guys have within your own lives, your own individuality, for each other, for your lives, for the family, for the hustle that you guys, started and continue to do. So the passion and the authenticity and just like the growth that you see from beginning to end, especially with him, right? He talks about his insecurities, how he started, how he was at the beginning of the relationship, with trying to not so much control, but control unknowingly almost. And then the growth and the turns that he takes. And like I said before, the little gem in my little book report to him was he got comfortable as Rashaan more than DJ Envy. He understood that DJ Envy was just his hip hop persona, his career, his job,
Right.
where Rashaan was his life.
Right.
You guys were his life.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning, that was kind of flip-flopped, where DJ Envy was him. That was his life. That was who he, identified with.
Right.
Rashaan was the other side that was just kind of there when he wanted it to be.
Right.
And that kind of flipped through the book.
That's interesting, because I got the
where he
opposite perspective.
Really?
Yeah, I felt like this is a story about Rashaan. And
That's what I'm saying.
Envy was such a small piece of it.
Right.
From not that a point where he had to come. I felt like he slipped into because he was shrimp.
No,
DJ
yeah.
Shrimp. And he was
Right.
Rashaan, and he was Gia's
DJ
boyfriend. And it wasn't until that one blip of time where he became Envy, and he was standing on the couch with the sunglasses
In the club, and she
Getting
said,
played
"You
by
look
his wife.
stupid."
Right.
There was that one blip of time where he was like, "Oh, well, let me be Envy for 5 minutes
And I'm gonna show you how
so
to
that I can make that valid." But from the beginning, from the middle, the end, it was all Rashaan with that small bit of Envy.
Yeah. But I think, no, and I agree, but I think he was more comfortable being Envy than he was Rashaan. Or he felt more secure in DJ Envy than he did Rashaan. And
Because
then
the life of DJ Envy,
came with those accolades from the
Exactly.
streets.
it made
You know, it made him
more
feel-
desirable,
Especially with
Exactly.
insecurity.
not just by women,
and it
but
all
by
goes back to the
society.
insecurity, right?
Mhm.
Exactly.
So he learned how to kind of fight that insecurity, understand it, adapt to it, learn from it. And he became more comfortable as Rashaan, whether it took that one moment in time and the fuck up, or before, even after, he understood and embraced who Rashaan was, and that is him.
Right.
And DJ Envy became secondary.
Right. I think that it helped him the transcendence, helped him to acknowledge who he really was and who he
identified
with, which speaks to, what you were saying.
So she even says, right, like and we've had this conversation about how I'm not the person that Googles and, follows every celebrity under the sun and knows everything about everybody. So even when I became friends with you guys, I didn't know a lot about you guys. And I'm not from New York either, right? So it wasn't DJ Envy's world to me. So the more I hung out with him, I was like, oh shit, like he's legit celebrity. Like, to me, I was like, oh, okay.
Oh,
okay.
he's big time.
Right. To me, he was just Rashaan, right? He was just, all right, you're cool. You're on the radio. The more I hung out with him, I was like, oh shit. Okay. But you also said that in the book too, or you maybe just to me, that there was a point where you went to a party with him and you're like, oh, like you have groupies. You have like
every man I've ever dated, everybody wasn't with the grocery store. But you better check us out.
I mean,
right.
In real life.
But in that moment, you weren't in that world with him, right? So you knew about it, you understood it, but until you actually saw it in that moment, like, oh shit.
Yeah, it was a moment for me.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Rashaan always wanted me to go to the club with him and to travel with him and to do all of these things. But I was the mother of two small children.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for those of you that don't know, like when we talk about the cheating, it was, and I know we talk about it a lot, and it's because it was very significant. What happened?
Sorry, Gia.
Pardon me.
Her whole, it's like caught in there.
A sound man. I feel like the audio is gonna get jacked, and
because it's in the middle of it. You see,
they're gonna come for you.
They're gonna come for me.
And be like, oh,
your
her
audio sounded like trash. You're dumb.
You see how we got
Hold
caught
on,
in there?
I'm sorry, guys. Can you play some music? Music.
Oh wait, now it's good.
We're gonna have to take this off.
Go get real life.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or something.
Hold on the book, guys.
There you go. And just
I see. All right.
you see how it's in there?
Going on there?
I'll get it. Sorry, Gigi.
We're good.
I was so distracted.
So if you haven't already pre-ordered, make sure you get the copy. Okay, and it's a beautiful book.
Okay, I don't remember what I was saying. What was it?
There was a moment for you where you went
to the club.
The cheating kids.
Oh yes, I was saying that we talk about it a lot, and it's because it was so important, and it was so detrimental when it happened.
It was a turning point in your life.
It was a turning point. It was a catalyst for a lot of great things to happen thereafter. I also talk about it a lot because most women that I know, if not every woman that I know, has gone through it at some point in her life. So I think that there's a lot to learn from what we experienced.
And what your thought process was.
And
then you throw in the industry as well.
I can go on and on about what happened to us and the lessons to be learned and the wisdom that I gained from it and everything else that came along, why it is so important to share. Many women have this experience but are too embarrassed to talk about it. Maybe they feel like a failure. They feel inadequate. They feel insufficient. A lot of women will use the word humiliation or embarrassment as descriptive words to explain how they feel as a result of being cheated on. And what I try to communicate in the book is that isn't the action of another. It has no reflection on you. Yeah. Be embarrassed about the things that you do, the choices that you make if they are not up to par, or if they tell a bad story about you. Never be humiliated or embarrassed by the action of someone else. It has nothing to do with you. It's their own lack of integrity. It's their own shortcomings that disabled them from handling you properly and handling the situation properly. And whatever it was that they were battling with or whatever it was that they wanted in that situation, they went after it in the wrong way. They were not whole.
That was another question I had. And you basically answered it. Why would we keep talking about it, right? Why you told me the story. I've heard it since from you and now the book and the podcast. Why do we keep telling it? And my natural inclination was to say, this ain't my fault. You did it. I'm not talking about it. It's over. And now hearing you say it, it's because when you unveil it in a certain way, it's empowering and creates a familiarity because most of us have experienced it.
All of us gone through
And it's
it.
not even the humiliation. I never would have had any humiliation from being cheated on.
I was.
Because we were told
I
that.
felt humiliated. And I know
That's your
many other
experience.
people.
But right, but we were told.
Would you have felt humiliated or embarrassed?
I was just thinking, like, when I had been cheated on, I was younger, so it didn't mean anything to me. So at that moment, no. If it happened now, probably.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Benz?
Yeah.
Okay, so I more resonated with you. There was no humiliation in that. That's something that men do. And culturally, I'm half Black, I'm half Italian. It's culturally something I've heard of. It was never for me. You do that to me and I'm out of here. More important than the humiliation was the guilt that I felt for staying. So, okay, you
That's
can
the
cheat.
part.
And it's always been said, it's never going to happen to me. So if you do it to me, I'm out of here. So it was more,
That's what I was
it was
gonna
less
say.
about the humiliation of the action. That's not on me. That's on you, dummy. The guilt was for, the humiliation was the guilt.
Was
I
the
think
guilt.
the whole situation too, knowing you and knowing that you were at some point so black and white, right?
Right.
Like you knew with your soul, if this was going to happen, I was done. You told everybody, right? Like, nope, I'm done. It's a wrap. We're getting divorced.
That was the girl that my mother raised.
Right. So there was no, like, you didn't give yourself time to process because you're like, all right, cool. Next step is divorce. I'll catch you on the flip
Doesn't
side.
matter how I feel.
Right.
The lawyer
Doesn't
was
matter how
called.
Yeah. I called the lawyer.
Juice and non-brush.
It's over. It's over.
No, the lawyer
She was like, nah,
called.
bro.
The lawyer
You don't
was
understand.
paid.
Told
Right.
his
I
parents.
lost a lot of money.
So
I told his parents.
Yep.
Once you tell the parents, it's kind
I
of
told
like,
his parents.
it's
I told
almost-
his parents the day
Forget the
that
parents.
the
That you
day
found
that
out.
I told his mother 35 minutes after
Mhm.
I left,
And she couldn't believe it. Like she couldn't.
and she couldn't
That
believe it.
was a-
It was
And having met her, you can almost imagine her reaction.
Oh,
exactly.
definitely.
That
I
was
told my
pivotal.
children. That's how you know. Like it wasn't like, well, she was gonna stay all along.
Mhm.
If I was going to stay all along,
We wouldn't have
my
gone through all
two
this.
young
Would've
children,
never-
and again, for perspective, if, in case you don't already know, we're talking about something that happened about 10 years ago.
Mhm.
It was one time, well, not one time, but with one person at one point. So I think I talk about it in a way where it seems as though there was like a slew of concubines. Like, and I think,
Yeah.
She got problems.
just a few. But so I know I speak about it in such a way. But the truth is,
But
for
it was
me,
pivotal for you.
because it was pivotal, but it also didn't matter if it was 1
Right.
or 10.
It was all
That was
it was the act. It doesn't matter.
It was the hurt. It was the act.
The betrayal.
It was the betrayal. It was the lies. It was
Disrespect.
everything, that too. It was, and then it was everything that came thereafter,
After,
and
yeah.
everything that I learned, and us ultimately becoming closer to God as a couple, and then the legacy of us being able to pass that down to my children, to be raised in a godly home from which they're learning from parents that no.
Right.
Like,
And
my mom
forgiveness.
taught me that God existed. Right?
Yep.
Her and my dad just didn't agree, but but that's what she taught me.
Right.
But she didn't teach me from a place of someone that knew.
Right.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying? I know, because God has unveiled himself to me in a special way. He didn't do that for my mother, or maybe she couldn't hear the knocking either. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's something I can give to my children. So I would have gone through everything, every hurt night that I experienced, everything that devastated me at the time. I would go through it all again, knowing, if I knew, that the gift at the end was this relationship with God, and I can pass it down to my children through legacy, and they can pass it down to theirs. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But you were saying.
But reading how, and I use the word pivotal because it truly was, like, it shifted you from black and white and, this is it. This is all I need to focus on. To then going into the gray zone uncomfortably,
Hell uncomfortable.
right? But then truly sitting in that zone, right?
Yeah.
And almost just
Angry.
angry, like feeling your feelings though in that zone, right? And then coming out of it, like seeing that, knowing how black and white you still are, even to this point. You have that gray zone,
Yeah.
but it's like, all right, I'll be there, tiptoeing here and there whenever I want. You're still very, all right, well, this happens, and then this is going to happen next.
Done.
So, do you,
Yeah.
let me ask you this, and I think this is going to be helpful for a lot of men and women. Do you think because, so men kind of like, oh, well, you better not do it again. This is the last time you do it again. And that's
Definitely
like,
coming for her.
dudes be like, yeah,
Right.
let it
Calling the bluff.
let shit cool down a month or 7 or a year, and then next thing you know, we back in this.
Pattern.
Right.
Do you think that you going so hard,
The extreme.
the extreme, divorce on the books, lawyer paid for,
That was her
told your
next step.
mama, told your kids, do you think that because you went so hard and made it so real that snapped Rashaan into, okay, I can't play this game anymore? What is the and this is not something you directly address in the book, but there's so much around it that the context helps. Would you say that's to have a woman be comfortable to take a man back?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it was the actions you took, or do you think that was just who you guys were?
Before you answer that,
Uh-huh.
not only did all that happen, the lawyers, the divorce, telling the mom, the kids, Gia Casey doubled down and was like, oh, you can come over for holidays. We won't be together. We can see the kids for holidays.
she-
Like,
Oh, we can watch it
made
together.
She made it reality. Like
No,
she
no,
gave
she-
actual scenarios of how this was going to play out.
She distanced him all day. He
Yeah.
was- she,
Like she drew out his alternate life.
no, yeah.
So wait, your question is?
Do you think that the going so hard, that like, really saying, no, we're divorced, and not just, oh, we're over, but
Don't
really,
do it again.
Did it
This is
what?
the last time.
Did it what? Finish the question.
Did that course correct Rashaan? Did that make
Do
him
you think
see
that's the reason?
No.
the reason
why?
why it never happened again?
No.
Okay.
Because remember, when you read the book, in case you didn't know, he course corrected himself
Mhm.
Before.
2 or
You
3
didn't call
years
him.
prior. I found out about it 2 or 3 years after it had already ended. When I found out about it, it was old
Oh, news.
news.
Right.
Well,
It was new to us,
for
right?
those who knew.
Right, right.
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 I was finding out about some relatively ancient, like it had already happened. It was
Right.
over. And he course corrected himself. He made a decision
Right.
that he didn't want to do that again. I think because he recognized all of the negative ways that doing what he did hurt him,
Mhm.
hurt his conscience
Before it even got to you.
before it ever even got to me.
Mhm.
And then all of those fears came to reality when I did find out, and
When you get home, Poof, we gotta talk.
Which
We gotta
when
talk.
you talk about it, you talked about it in the show that you guys did, right? The woman behind the man.
behind it. Right.
Yeah. And the way you talked about it there, I was like, dang, he told himself. Like, all she
But
said was,
most
we
men
gotta
do.
talk. Right.
Most
Right.
men
All
do.
she said was, we gotta talk. And they're like,
But I think it's been
damn.
weighing
But,
on
but,
him.
but also
100%.
it's
It was
how
something
it's
that was
the relationship.
right.
He knows
He
Gia.
knew, she
So
knew.
he knew that we gotta talk meant we're not talking about you being pregnant
Yeah,
and your
chips
doctor's
and giggles.
appointment because you would have told me.
Because he
This
went
is
straight to
something-
you and was like, go look this shit
This is
up. Is it
something
out there? Is it out there? Like,
right.
she knows.
He was
We gotta
panicking.
talk means it's
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
right. So he already
Yeah.
knew where
He
you
already
at.
knew.
Pull into that parking lot. I'm coming right now. We're gonna talk about this right now.
You
Like,
couldn't wait the additional 15
yeah,
minutes
no. Yeah.
for me to get home.
Mind you, I can't drive by that place anymore without
You
being
can't
like,
drive past
oh,
that Home
damn.
Depot on
I'm like, oh, damn.
Be like, this is where it
went
all
down.
went
That's what happens.
That's where it went down.
Punching steering wheel.
pouring one out the window for you.
The next line of podcast is gonna be
Damn, homie.
Time is that.
And that's
For the homie.
Sean looks at me like I'm crazy knowing that I can laugh about this now.
Yeah.
Like,
But
I mean,
it
that's the
took
beauty of the
10
book,
years.
though.
Yeah,
Gia.
that's
yeah.
the beauty of the book.
To be honest, because people get to see.
It's not even the time.
Right. Yeah.
It was the work
Yeah.
in the New Deal.
The New Deal.
Do you understand what I'm saying? It was the work that he put in. It was what he showed and what he proved. It was that. And then, and also me, what's it? Which one of you said? The humiliation, it was you. The humiliation in the forgiveness, right? I could talk about it so freely because, and the guilt, because God absolved me of that guilt and that humiliation. I don't carry that.
This is bigger than y'all.
This is bigger than y'all. I don't carry that burden on my back, worrying about what anybody thinks, because I don't give a
bleep.
Do you understand? Because I fully understand my human experience and what I was taken through. So,
but that's the freedom of God.
That's the freedom. I don't have to worry about what anybody thinks. You know?
I will say this: the closer you get with your relationship with Source and Spirit, the less you care about what anybody else thinks.
And the noise.
It's so important. And living in your truth is so much more real. Like to sit here and say we've made all these human mistakes and we've lived all these human experiences is because we know there's something bigger than ourselves. So that I can't answer. I owe nobody anything.
Right.
But in my younger self, my ego was so inflated that I had guilt because what does that say about me to all the people? Who are these people?
I would have felt the same way.
Right.
Watching me
take this
go
man back
to a man who didn't even deserve me to begin with that's now cheated on me.
Yeah.
That's
he don't know you're.
Right.
But he cheated on me.
And that and
there.
And again, that's the beauty for me of the book. Because I was you and you were I. Like I would have felt the same way, like me. Like, what would that tell to the people that know and love me? You know, like no, because I'm stronger than that. I'm more powerful than that. Like y'all already know I don't put up with anything from anybody. I'm sweet, I'm mild, I'm soft spoken, but I don't effing play either.
Yeah.
And anyone that knows me,
I'll cut you off and that's it.
I was gonna say
you won't even know why. I cut you off and you don't even know why I cut you off.
Yeah.
Like you know,
another one bites the dust.
That is me. Like
you melted in that moment. You could see it in the book. You melted. It was
that's
like
a good way of putting it.
You melted because you had these polar ice caps of rules.
Yes.
And it was almost like this is a well-oiled machine. This does not work if I deviate from this.
Because this carried me through life.
Yeah.
And I have
it got you through those experiences.
So I have a question. So we talk about in this instance, right?
Yeah.
Where God came and you said after the second time that God knocked on your door, you looked up like, I get it.
Yeah.
Right? We've also had a conversation aside from the book, and you and I have spoken, and you said to me, you know, we know that your mom had dementia, and you speak about it in the book. Had your mom had her wits about her, and she knew what had happened, the knocking on the door would have made a difference if your mom knew.
I'm going to say something right now that I've never said publicly, and I've never, and I didn't say it in the book. I don't know how it's going to come across, but I'm going to tell the truth.
Because I think I know the answer, but then I don't want to,
that's important.
That's a deep question.
Speak.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, what I believe is that whatever Rashaan and I are supposed to accomplish together as a couple through our love and or through our children and possibly their subsequent children, I believe that it is so great that my mother was a casualty. By that, what I mean is, if my mother didn't have dementia when I was going through that struggle, God, I would not have forgiven Rashaan.
Because her voice was that powerful.
Because my mother's voice was so powerful, and I was raised to be so strong and so no nonsense and no, pardon my language, but no bullshit, where I don't take anything from anybody that I do not deserve. I could not have gone to my mother and told her, as much as she loved Rashaan. And in the last podcast where, I was asking Rashaan questions, Rashaan even said that, him and my mom would have, I'm going to quote him. He said, like, fuck Gia conversation. Like, I would do something to him. He would call my mom and vent to her. And they would have a fuck Gia conversation, right? As close as they were, and as much as my mother adored Rashaan, I mean, I think she might have loved him a little bit more than me. Like, she loved him. And even with that love, if she had her wits about her and knew that he did what he did, I couldn't have humbled myself to go to my mother and say, Mom, I had this experience and God came to me. And she'd be like,
Are you stupid?
Are you stupid? I didn't raise you to be like that. And if nothing else but to save face
I would
in front of my mother,
you would have executed that plan.
God, I'd be like, sorry, God, you have to find me another love of my life.
Yeah, I think I know that. That's all the question.
When you don't have parents, you don't like, and then you're respectfully to the rest of your family, you're like, okay, well, but that voice, it's the safety net and it's the voice. Okay, well, I don't have anybody to answer to now. I'm the parent, but there's also no safety net, so I'm responsible.
Right.
And for you, when I say it melted, I saw, you could see it in the picture from when you had the assault on you. There was resolve, like this young girl, this beautiful young girl assaulted, and you're sitting there and the resolve in your face was like, nah, take this. And you could see, it's almost like at that moment, it all piled on. And then you were this person until God and the melting of it all. There's a responsibility. And when you say casualty, that's important. It's almost like you had a choice. And God said, okay, you can have these amazing parents, but you'll lose this one at 19. And then you'll lose this one at this point. And then that's going to be, the rest of the story goes this way. And you think back and you're like, I would have chosen that. Because I would rather have these two amazing parents for the brief time I did and to equip me in the way that they did than to have a lifetime of shitty parents or shitty examples. And it was really important that you said that because you knew, almost as though it was your choice beforehand, that you would not have been able to stay in this with her still being present of mind, because that's not who her daughter was.
No.
You were not Gia at that moment. You were her daughter.
And I think that even if God kicked down that door, I don't think I would have seen that door.
You would have picked it up and
on the shed.
Try again.
Right.
I would not have. I would not have recognized it. I would have been too busy laying in my mother's bed, like, yo.
Yeah.
Because you were the strength. And that's the first part of the book.
Yeah.
Everything that you painted, you can see it clear as day. Because as you're reading, I saw from the stitches, you driving into the parking lot, the way you talked about your mother. Like, I can visualize all of these things, like, vividly. Like, I can see it. And I think that it's important for everyone to understand that the levels that not only, like, it humanizes you and boss.
Yeah.
People have a perception of you and they have a perception of him. You bring them from, this is how I was from yay
My
high.
whole life.
My whole entire
My whole
life.
life.
So it helps people understand, stop judging a book by its cover, because this cover is beautiful,
But
inside, it's so much more magic in there,
Mhm.
as you say.
To me,
That's the best part to me of the book.
permeating. There's so much in there about their relationship, but to me, the overpowering. I don't know if anybody else felt this way. The overpowering voice of this book was your mom.
Yes.
It was it's like you
Really?
you could
You felt
you
that way?
could
Mhm.
and that could be my own circumstance. There's so many parallels to our parents. The loss of my mother changed me. The loss of my father defined me
Mm.
completely.
Mhm.
My mother was the boss bitch. She was take no shit like yours. Every move I didn't have to think because my mother thought for me. When my mother died and I was 22 years old, okay, well now I have to think, and I don't have to think for her, for me, my 16-year-old sister, 50-year-old father. I have to think for all of us now because she thought for all of us, and I am her daughter. My mother's death changed me. Then I grew this weird best friend relationship with my dad. Only person I ever trusted fully. Only person I ever felt understood me fully. So now it's my little brother. It's my best friend. Still my dad. But then he died. Well, that defined me. That defined who I was. Because now it's like, all right, well, you're not. My sister was off living with her fiance at the time and out to start her own family. So it's like, who are you? So that defined me.
Mhm.
I don't have to care for these people anymore. I don't have to be my mother's daughter anymore. My mother's death changed me. My father's death defined me. That whole book, she is all over that book.
Mhm.
From the beginning to the end, that woman's voice is threaded. And not just through her.
Mhm.
Through
Rashaan.
Rashaan. Yep.
Yeah.
And their relationship.
Explain that.
You see
Hold
from
on, like that. I just want to say that makes me so happy.
it's
And
undeniable.
it's writing it is an experience for me. I know what inspired me to write, but to hear you say that and know that that's what comes across, although it's not, it wasn't as intentional
Mhm.
as it came across. Obviously, my dedication is to my mother. And then there's a section where I talk about the way that I was mothered and how it translates into the way that I mother my children. But to hear that you saw that weaving throughout and it came
so
across.
so far beyond the dedication. When you talk about how and I experienced this the same, and that's why I asked the girls if they experienced that too, because I don't know if it's because our circumstances were so similar that I felt it. Same thing with the way you talk about the affection you give your children and how you were able to almost the same for me, not hearing I love you, not being overly hugged or kissed by my mother, but I knew the power of this person was so strong that it was love in a whole different form.
You didn't need the I love yous.
I did.
Yes, you did.
And she knows that her children do.
Mm-hmm.
But even without saying it, it was like, I recognized that was the way that woman was loved.
Right.
Mhm.
And I don't blame her. I don't put any.
Mhm.
Put
And
it in perspective.
we talk about this a lot, and you don't have this, and that's a blessing. The most difficult thing in life is to be angry or frustrated with a dead person.
Yeah.
How do you go back and have a conversation and tell a dead person, I forgive you. I'm okay with these circumstances,
Power prayer.
And the threads through this book that are just, and I don't know if you realized it writing it or if you saw it afterwards, but her voice is all through it because you just truly, truly see that that's where you are pulling your strength from at every point. And even when you make a choice that's other than what you think she would do, you're almost like, I'm sorry, mommy, I know you wouldn't do this, but because of you, I can do this.
Mhm.
Deep.
Mhm.
Very deep.
Absolutely.
That was beautiful.
You love to wiggle. She loved that. She loved that.
It's
That was
that
well
extra
said.
tenderness. But yeah, no, it can't be anything but her voice because her voice is my voice.
We are our mother's daughters. Like it or not, love it or not, we are our mother's daughters. We're our father's daughters too.
But some people, that's just by default.
Yeah.
I happen to be so proud and honored to be my mother's daughter. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, and that's why I guess it inadvertently comes out in ways other than what was deliberate. Obviously, there's deliberate ways in the book, but and then that just really, really makes me happy. That really, really makes me happy.
You talk about the timing, like, oh, I was 3 months pregnant, Mother's Day, and those are very, very tangible, obvious things.
Yeah.
But that's not the powerful part.
Right.
Throughout that book, that's on the nose, right?
Right.
It's like,
That's the
you
obvious.
mentioned
That's
it, and
the
I think that was your way of proving the
right.
connection. But it's just so weaved throughout it. It can't be denied.
And showing the importance of it.
Yeah.
Because not all of us have it or, experience it, and I think that Boss's side shows how his parents were and how you were with your parents, but how you can define your own family the way. So you still have your mother's voice, and Boss is able to still come in and take from what he learned, but able to be sheltered by you on that and get and receive that. And I think that with men, it's like they're grown up like, oh, they got to be stern, they got to
like
be this way. And they don't need a hug. We don't need to hug you. We're gonna tell you we love you, and you need to be strong, man.
Right.
But like how you are with Boss, which is out this world, and what you give him that reassurance. We see it every day. We hear it, like he talked about in the last podcast. But you are his reason to love. He says it there, and he feels it. He couldn't explain it because it's a feeling.
Right.
He couldn't verbalize how he makes
when
her
I
feel.
asked him, how does he
How do you define love, and how does it make you feel? That's the exact question. And he danced around it, but he was just like, it's a feeling, and you're the only person that can give me that feeling. That was deep for me, because it's like what you were saying, kind of like what you want.
Right.
But he's got to get there, and he can get there because I don't think Boss would be able to verbalize that, just say that out loud without feeling away or feeling like I'm a man. I gotta, I love you, girl. That's all you're gonna get.
I love you.
But you're like, no, I want you to dig deep. And he had to sit there for a second, but he couldn't explain.
Answer like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and it was just like,
that's not an answer.
but he said,
she'll challenge you.
Oh,
she'll be like,
she did. Trust me, she did. But for him to say,
You gotta know. We have to start by understanding ourselves. If
and
we
can manipulate a conversation.
Exactly.
Then you're
not going to get to the truth.
If you're the one manipulating, you're not getting to your own truth.
Yeah, you can't grow.
We have to understand ourselves.
And you
there
reverse
was something in the book, and I don't know verbatim, but how I took it was, I am mine before I am anybody else's.
Ownership in you. And she didn't lose hope. Like, she didn't lose who she was.
And that is me today. I'm okay with me.
Right.
I am mine before I could be anybody else's. So reading the chapters in the book, you asked what you resonate with. But there's you in every chapter. There's a part of me in every chapter, because my circumstance has been every single chapter, So I think that for me was great.
Your takeaway?
My takeaway, like knowing me, loving me
first.
And then I can give that love.
And receive it. Because you're deserving.
Yeah. Knowing there's power in that. It doesn't have to be power in that abuse and like, oh, I got it now. Like, I got the upper hand. There's power in a way, but there's no real power in that. It's what I can, for myself, knowing that I am strong because I've dealt with circumstances. Because I looked at myself like, I'm fucking weak. Like, how many times do I got to deal with bullshit? How many times?
By different men.
By different men. By different men, like, okay, but don't do it again.
This is the last time.
Being embarrassment, because not because people knew about it, but because whoever your indiscretions was with, I was a joke to her. Like, I'm a fucking joke. And then like, look at her. He fucking me, but she kept him. Like, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for myself.
That thought, right? Because it's not even, and I remember when I was like pre what we went through, that was like my thought, like why I would never forgive.
Right.
Like when I was black and white, why I would never forgive. So basically,
I'm not gonna
you put me in a position
right
where you got another woman feeling like she got
the one up me.
Like she's better than me.
Yep.
Like she has something that I don't have.
Mm-hmm. That's why he's
that you're choosing her.
That's women.
Yeah.
Yes. That you're choosing her.
Yep.
Word, you chose her. Well, guess what?
Keep
You better keep her. Because she's gonna be your new boo.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Keep choosing
and then
her.
I'm gonna run her down.
Then there's that. Right.
You are.
Look at her earring.
You already know. You already know.
Oh my God.
No, you know, that's actually a good segue to a question I had. What do you tell the people who are the Ingrids, the Benzes, the Heathers that are beyond their 15-year-old childhood sweetheart? They've been through real life tough relationships.
Right.
They've been through significant situationships. They're single, figuring it out, okay with themselves, but trying to figure out the next move. How do you say, like, okay, there's this great love story, but what do you say to that person, male or female, who still believes that there's a story that exists out there?
Well,
do you keep kissing the toes?
Well, I'd love to be thoroughly optimistic, but that wouldn't be real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody doesn't get it.
Thank you for saying that.
I was just about to say that.
Saying anything other than that would be a whole
lie.
Yes. It's not
a lie.
Everybody
is not.
Doesn't get a happily ever after. Now you want to know why? True feelings. I believe that. Listen, I'm not a big talker about the universe and all that stuff, right?
We know.
That's not really.
I'd be like, numbers.
That's not really my shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't really believe in like horoscopes and all that stuff. Like the universe, like I do believe like in manifestation, and whatnot. But I believe that that's more like an actual thing. I do believe that there's very direct correlations between the way that you carry yourself in the world. And that we call it the energy, right? The energy that you receive.
Mm-hmm.
If I walk into a room like I own it, people will inadvertently treat me like I own it. Because you are giving it off. And people tend to respect that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
If you walk into a room and you're postured,
nervous and
especially as a female,
you're shy, you don't speak up for yourself.
That's how they're going to treat you.
People are going to treat you as though you are inferior to them because you've made them feel as though you're inferior to them. Right. So people call it the universe. Hell, maybe it is. I don't know. But I believe in manifestation, but I believe it more on a plane of like just reality. Kind of like you get what you give. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But do you?
If you truly believe in yourself, if you are truly a good person, if you truly have good intentions, if you're fake, you're going to get fake stuff back. You're not going to get the real. If you're not a good person, why the hell is God going to bless you?
Right.
God might give you momentary blessings, but maybe he's just playing with you. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't deserve the long-standing blessings. I believe that when you are good and you are honest and you are beautiful on the inside, if you are humble and you are truly deserving, I believe that you will get. Because
where are you at?
And my I'm speaking.
That's also not the goal.
I know.
What'd you say?
She said,
Okay.
but where he's at. I said, that's not the goal.
And I'm going to tell you why I wholeheartedly believe that. I believe in God's blessings.
Mhm.
And I believe that when we have, some people call it soulmate, but I'll just say when you are blessed with the right partner, it's because God gave that partner to you.
Mhm.
I believe that. And I'll speak from a personal place. I might have said this before a long time on the podcast, but listen, before the whole experience that I went through with Rashaan, I was a worldly person. Okay?
Worldly person.
I was a freaking
What are you
worldly
talking
ass
about
person. Before the cheating
Okay.
and me becoming
For the
like
grand.
this,
Right,
with the homie upstairs,
Yes.
the big OG.
I was a whole worldly person. Okay?
Oh, you were in the streets, is what you were for the streets? In
No,
the
I
streets?
wasn't in the
Of
streets.
the streets?
No, I was maybe slightly of the streets, not for the streets.
Oh,
She was-
the
she was-
streets.
Why do you think it's all bougie? Just say it. Just say it.
I was trying to say,
No.
when you're smoking crack.
No, didn't go that far.
I'm just kidding.
But worldly in the sense of
Yeah.
if an Apple laptop fell off the back of a truck,
I'm
and someone
taking
said
that.
to me, and
Oh,
someone
yeah,
said
you
to
were taking
me,
shorts.
"Hey, I got this $1,200 laptop for you for $600." I'm like, "Where that?"
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I got cash.
I'm gonna still say where that. Like,
Because you need to get back.
You need to get right with God.
but I didn't take it off the back of the truck.
You understand? If I wasn't led by a higher sense of conscience because it just didn't even really occur to me. I'm
Right.
like, well, I ain't still a laptop.
You see, that's my thought. That's my process. That's my thought. I didn't steal
I
it,
would be like, well, I'm not credit card
and I'm paying for
Do you
it
know what I mean?
anyway.
The universe gets it back at you.
It was kind of like a
Little
don't
dingers
ask,
in your
don't
car.
tell.
Yes.
You know, like, I don't know where it came from. I don't know if your grandmama gave it to you, if it fell off the back of a truck, if it was a credit card scam, or if you stole it. But that got nothing to do with
Right.
me. How much is it?
I'm paying for
Do you
it.
understand what I'm saying? I didn't do anything
So
wrong.
now
You couldn't pay me to make a wrong or unethical conscious decision.
Lord Jesus.
Now, mind you, I am not perfect. I don't try to be, that's not my goal. My goal isn't to be perfect, but I need to be able to do the best that I can do in my humanity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It means not talking about my friends behind their backs, not taking
You only got like
shorts.
4.
Mhm.
No, I'm just kidding. It was a
It's about,
joke.
like 4 more. They have like
No,
4 more
yeah. It's like
friends, right?
no, it was a joke. It was
No,
a
but it's
joke.
true, it's true, though.
It was a
Like,
joke.
it's true. But you know, like there are things that I will not engage in through that higher sense of conscience, which is led by God.
You
To the
can't
point-
avoid it. Karma comes about.
Yes,
This
to the
at this
point
table,
where,
I didn't mean
like before, I mean, it's a small example, but I would litter.
Yeah.
Like I would litter.
She said I would let
No,
her.
it's the
You
truth.
used to throw trash out your car.
I sure did.
I don't like that.
Oh.
That's
Well,
the worst thing I
I
hate.
throw gum. I don't throw trash. I throw gum, and she told me about it.
That's the one thing I won't do is gum.
Yeah, she.
Because
she
have
told
you
me-
ever stepped on gum?
throw trash out their car.
If it's in on
You
the
have a
highway,
nice pair of
on the
shoes,
highway,
and you step on a piece of gum
on the highway.
because
I'm talking about the
someone
highway.
was so
I
inconsiderate.
think about the tire behind me, like
But
People just throw like McDonald's bag out their car. I don't
No,
I
that's
would
ghetto.
throw a whole McDonald's
No,
bag.
that's ghetto.
I've seen it.
That shit is ghetto. I'm talking about a
like
gum
a
out the
gum
window when I'm on the highway. It's not that deep.
I
Oh,
would throw
McDonald's.
a
The tire?
wrapper. I would. So let me tell you.
Our place nice for
So
them.
after this whole thing,
Yeah, I don't know where
this is
y'all
a real
live at.
situation. I pulled up to a party city, and my nanny at the time had made me a bagel so that I could take for my drive because I was starving, didn't have time to eat. So don't judge me. I get to the party city, and this is after, you know, my evolving, right? And I'm like, I ate half the bagel sitting on my seat, and I'm like, oh, I got the crumbs, and I need to get rid of this bagel. There's no trash can outside of Party City for some reason, right? And I'm like, ah. I take it, and I put it underneath my car in the little Dixie paper plate, right? I get out my car, I walk across the street, and it was weighing
You
on
went back
me.
and grabbed it.
That I turned around,
I
walked
mean, no.
back to the car, and I'm in a truck, right?
So you crawled.
And you crawl
I got because, and now see when I put it under, I was like, it slid. It went, so it's like halfway across the middle of the car. I had to get down. It was the conscience.
That's
And
good.
it's a silly,
No, it's not silly.
it's
It's
a silly
powerful.
example, but
Yeah.
I'm being real.
No, that's good. You need.
I get down and I had to crawl under my car. Someone literally was like, "Do you need help getting something?" I'm like, "No, I'm good."
Because they're like, you said, yeah. Can you get that other half a bagel over there?
And I'm like,
I dropped my bagel under my car.
I'm trying to grab,
My bagel slid.
I'm trying to grab the edge of the, and then like to get my nail, and I finally got, and I dragged it back. I come out, I'm all dirty. I had to go back
But
home.
your soul was clean.
But my soul was clean.
Lord.
Do you see? Like, no, seriously, no, I'm not even kidding.
You see? No, but this one, she dragged it. She dragged it.
There's a sense, there's a term that actually one of my other 8 friends said to me.
It's 8. It's 8.
Is it
Damn
I
it.
think it is 8.
It's 8.
It is
8, right? I think it's 8 friends I have.
You know
and
I'm
I
counting in my
think-
head, right?
And Sasha.
Yeah.
I know.
Sasha said to me once, and it stuck with me forever. And it's one of those things I keep hearing in my mind all the time, especially when I was transitioning into a better person. And she said to me, when you know better,
You do better.
do better.
Yes.
And God knows when you know. So if you choose not to do better, it's like a defiance.
Yeah.
Mm.
Do you
And shit
understand
comes
what I'm
back to
saying?
you because of it. Like,
but you can't,
in-
but you
in
can't
different
do it
instances.
because it'll come back to you. You have to do it solely on the plane that I'm making this choice because it is right, even if I never get anything back in return. Do you see what I mean?
Right.
She's like, fuck.
She's like, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
She's like,
but I say I'm a work in progress. Like,
It gets stronger. I think.
It was like, I haven't got to that part yet.
I think for me, it's beyond right and wrong. It's intention, like intuition. So I say it's because both my parents are gone. My angels are stronger. All my grandparents are. My angels are stronger. So to me, like I'm walking down the street, something tells me cross the street. I don't have to have a reason,
You just do it.
or even if this feels like a more direct path, if something tells me cross the street, I just cross the street.
Mm-hmm.
It's the obedience.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's the obedience. And it's so far beyond that type of stuff. Because I used to be like that too. Like I'm like, well, this is biodegradable and that's tree, so I can toss the bagel. I can toss the bagel, but not the Dixie
squirrel's
plate.
gonna come and get it.
Yes, but not the Dixie plate, just the bagel. Like,
Yes.
you see, yeah, no, I don't think like that.
So, but that's what I'm saying. But then your intuition is like,
Maybe he loves it away.
it's just beyond. It's like you feel it, and if something triggers me, or it feels like this isn't, then I.
My dad used to say that sometimes you have to go to an extreme to prove a point, right? And this is
You
an
calling
extreme
under?
in the sense of something completely insignificant.
Yeah.
But it's just a small dose to show, like, as a reference point for like all the greater choices that I make that have a lot more that hang in the balance. And the reason I even mentioned it is because once we started living a more intentional life that is directed by God, the blessings could not stop flowing in. The blessings were just one after the other, after the other, after the other. And I'm like, shh, 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 shh. You know, like, and it's like, wow. And I felt it in my heart that there was a direct correlation between my actions as a better human being and what I am being blessed with on a daily basis. So to answer your question, because we went all around
Right. But she's
So
worldly, so it kind of hit.
So, to answer your question, yes, no, I don't think that everybody gets it because I don't think that everybody deserves it. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't think that everyone has gotten to a point where they are.
No, I'm just kidding.
That was with a silencer too. Did you see that?
That's the sniper gun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was one of those.
yeah, exactly.
With a jar, poison
Word,
jar.
word.
Right?
Yeah, I'm all right.
But I think that people that are deserving and people that have patience and people that have faith, I believe that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of
When.
Okay, I'm back to life.
Yes, when.
Wait. No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, not too long ago, I was talking to a coworker. She's not a coworker. She's not a friend. She's an older woman. and she works across the hall from where I'm at. So we don't work together by no means. Like our most interaction would be like our little kitchenette and the ladies' room.
Right.
That's our interaction. And we're in the bathroom. I don't even know what sparked the conversation. She might have complimented me about something. And in that conversation, she talked about God and how God spoke to her. And she spoke about the overwhelming feeling. And it gave me goosebumps, but I'm not there. I didn't understand it. And she told me how she felt this overwhelming feeling, and she wasn't particularly religious, but she kept feeling it. And she started praying. And she says, God, I want to know more about you. Give me the ability to read the Bible. Give me the ability to understand you.
Mm-hmm.
And she did. And she explained how reading the Bible and building a relationship with God, not necessarily going to church, but just her faith. Right. Her faith was so powerful that it changed so many things in her life, from her mother having cancer and her praying over her mother and saying, God, I'm going to pray over my mom every single day. And if you are here and if you're going to help, I'm going to feel heat in my hands and she will feel sensation in her belly. And it would be just that. She says, I may have felt it 2 or 3 times in a course of 10 months where I knew that she was going to be okay. So it made me, and I say that to say, in that conversation, in the bathroom, it made me want to have more faith. Because sometimes we say like, I believe in God, I pray, but my faith isn't all there because bad things happen. Unfortunate things happen, and they've happened to me.
But it's through those things. You have to have faith despite those things.
Right,
and that's the test. And you can't just love God when you feel like He's loving you.
Right. Yeah. So when I was going through,
that makes it a conditional relationship.
And I'm praying because God, please don't let this happen to me no more. Like, and I don't want that anymore because that's been me. I've been
right. And you know why you're not getting? Because when you pray like that. To me, this is my opinion, right? You're bargaining, or you're using God for your benefit.
For the time being, for the benefit, yes.
Like think about it. If your man only bleeps with you, if you're, oh damn, I was about to get vulgar. If you're
about to be boss,
she forgot
quick.
we live.
We only get ahead.
She forgot we live.
We're rolling, just trying to sneak back up in.
I rebuke the world.
Don't rebuke.
Oh my God. You want me to say it? I can say it.
Yeah, you can say it. If your man is only treating you well, if you
don't give him head,
right?
That's a nice way of putting it, right? But if you stop doing that,
he not fucking with me. He fucking with
or he just starts treating you
a girl
like
with a purple wig,
right?
Oh,
that means that
it's conditional.
It's conditional, and he's using you
right
as long as he's benefiting,
right?
Or he's only tapping on your shoulder at midnight,
right? Because he wants to.
Do you understand what I'm saying? If you're only tapping on God's shoulder when you need something,
because bad shit happening to me, yeah.
When you need something, he gonna be like, "Nah, B."
Yeah.
Just like you might be like, "Get off of me."
Oh, yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I always feel guilty. Like I find myself, my prayers are always gratitude, and as I go to ask for stuff,
that's funny. I feel the same way.
As I go to ask for stuff,
you feel guilty.
I feel bad. I feel guilty, and I stop myself. I'm not going to ask God for that. He knows.
So you know what I was
to
rephrase my prayer or my
so you know what I was.
So
that's exactly it.
That's to lay your burdens down.
There's a whole piece in the book where I don't remember if we got the question from. I think it was from an email that we put in the book where someone says something to the effect of, I want a closer relationship with God. How do I achieve that? How do I pray?
Yeah, it was an email.
Then Rashaan and I both answered that question in the book. So that's kind of like what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. Well, isn't it true that you became a better person through a closer relationship with God through tragedy?
Absolutely. And that's that was the course.
Yeah, that's the yin and the yang in other cultures.
And that's
right?
why I say that what happened was a gift and a curse.
It has to be.
You know, what is it? There's no message without the mess.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
There's no testimony without
there's no testimony without the test.
Yeah, I know my little quotes. You got a lot. She has a lot of
You might
quotes
have
in there
posted
too.
that yesterday in your story.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be surprised. Knowing what your Instagram life be like.
But I'm definitely trying to find my faith. I'm trying to find my relationship with God.
You need it.
Mm.
Did that come out wrong?
I was gonna say, I think we all felt that shot.
You need it. No, you need it. Because I want you to have everything that life has to offer you.
And
there will be more for you.
And I feel that. And I've started praying. I feel guilty when I fall asleep because I pray when I'm laying down.
I pray every time.
But I feel like that's the devil.
But he makes you fall asleep.
No.
The Lord wants me to rest.
No.
He heard my message. And he said,
I'm not the only one. I am not the only one.
He said, that's my child.
You see?
Don't do that.
I was going to say,
You
The devil
see?
told me to sleep.
Right with God in that moment.
No, you know what I see?
I had to pray against that.
I
had to
falling
pray
asleep.
against that. Yeah.
I felt like God know what I want to say. He said, just rest. I already know. He said, lay to rest. I already know.
And you was like,
It's not like I was like, oh no, look.
I am so sorry.
You became one with God in that moment in a deep connection.
Yeah, it's the same way.
This
people
one,
fall asleep
that's the
when they're
devil.
meditating, right?
That's the devil.
So real quick.
yes, I don't think so.
So real quick. So I feel guilty when I fall asleep. I also feel guilty when I am asking for certain things because I almost feel like I'm wishing. Like I'm rubbing a lamp and I'm wishing for a genie, and I have 3 wishes. And well, no, I'm giving you Well, I feel like when I'm asking for certain things or when I'm praying, I feel like I'm wishing upon a star. Like it almost goes from talking to God to
Santa.
So this is an example of what not to do when you pray.
But I'm
with the hair, and the side eye.
It was this.
To pray. So.
And the side eye. She had the whole. She said,
talked inside eye, but she didn't.
I mean, it sounds nice to say that you can figure out your own way to pray. And yes, there is a lot of truth to that. But I don't think that there's necessarily a
wrong way,
right way to pray. But I do think that there's a wrong way to pray. If you're only praying when you're asking God for favors or for things or for the ease of life and whatnot, without coupling those desires with gratitude and with ways that you want to make your life better, ways that you want to make the people around you better, the ways that you want to make the world better. I thank God for
waking me up in the morning,
negative that has ever happened to me and for everything that will happen to me. That is part of my daily prayer because of those things, I gain wisdom. I gain character. I grow. I evolve. So I'm thankful for all of that negativity.
All right, so you're going to show me after this podcast how to do this?
Yes. We're going to do that.
It's the way you're vocalizing it. I know you pray for your friends.
Absolutely.
I know you pray for your family.
Absolutely. And it's so crazy because when I pray, I pray for waking me up. I pray for my safety every day when I go to work. I pray to come back home the same way I left, in one piece.
No, that's
I pray for those people around me, from family, from parents, from siblings, from my sisters outside of blood. Mm-hmm. I pray for everybody. I pray for those who are less fortunate, who I don't even know about. I pray to be able to give, whether it's monetary or just being able to give somebody some sort of
time or energy.
Mm-hmm. Right. Giving them something that they probably didn't think, giving them something that has been given to me. A conversation, even from our last podcast, stuff that we spoke about that resonated with me that I can now pass on to somebody else. So
one thing I will say for you, God is love. You will get closer to God the more you love yourself. The more you love Ingrid, the more you accept Ingrid, the more you undeniably set barriers for the love of yourself. When you don't say it, you do it. When you love Ingrid in all of the ways that that means, whether it's creating boundaries, whether it's taking better care of your health, whether it's just being more intentional, you will find a closer path to God. You love yourself more. You are honoring the temple that God gave you. You will find a clearer path to God.
But I think that it also works reverse. I think it works both ways. I also feel like the more that you love God,
The more
The
he
more
will
that
let
you'll-
me love me.
because once you love him, you'll be able to see yourself through his eyes.
Mm.
You know? I don't know if you guys notice, a lot of times I'll feel some type of way, like if I'm in a group and someone's insulting the way someone else looks.
Oh, you don't be having that.
That upsets me,
Mhm.
right? Because,
You don't know that person's struggle. You don't know.
well, there's that, right? But we're not in control of the way that we were born and the way that we look. And if anybody were to ever insult the way I look, for instance, I would feel like, well, take it up with God,
Mm-hmm.
because God made me that way. I choose to see myself through God's eyes. I am what God wanted me to be. Do you understand what I'm saying? And when you understand that, you start to have, it can be the beginning, the seed of loving yourself. You are what God intended for you to be. Not to say that, any of us are perfect or any of us are without flaw, but you start there and then you can start on your journey to becoming the best you that you can be. You start the journey on becoming
Self-aware.
Evident. Self-aware. Introspective.
hold on a minute.
Assured.
There's an actual term, self-actualized. You become, you're on the road to becoming self-actualized, which means that you become your own personal ultimate self. And that's the beginning of being all right with yourself, loving yourself like you put earlier. You know what I mean? But first you have to see yourself through God's eyes and understand that you were born a beautiful person.
And self-actualization is whole, right? It's seeing your whole self and acceptance of your whole
And
self.
in every facet of your life. You understand what I'm saying? So I do believe that the more that you love God, the more faith you have in him, and the more understanding that you have that you are everything that you're supposed to be. The only thing he wants from you is to grow and evolve and become the
Better.
best you that you can
I
become.
will say this, and this is for both of you. You're still younger, right? There's she looked at me like I'm old. There's things that
35 is still young.
It's still young. It's still young. There's things that I didn't realize about myself and about my journey, things I hadn't come into, pains I hadn't felt, elevations I hadn't experienced within that small amount of years between our ages. And I know there's years between me and the next level to come where I'll grow that much even more. Give yourself grace. You know what I mean? We're not perfect. And the fact that you want to grow and you want to build your relationship with God and you want to be a better person, and that's something important. It's like, at what point did you choose or become a better person? You know, the fact that you have that desire and that will, that's half of it right there. But give yourself grace. There's so much growth that happens between where you are now just to where we are in age, that few little bitty years. Not to be funny, but I didn't even have like a butt until I was 36. It just came out of nowhere. So I know that was a
I'm trying to see where
pivot.
this is going.
I know that
Right,
was a
that
pivot.
was a pivot.
I know that was
I was
a
just thinking
pivot.
about that like last week. I was like, where?
I know that was a pivot, but I know it was weird. Like things changed. Things that you never.
That's your example of things change.
I was like, wait, where's this going? I'm trying to follow.
I'm trying to make it
It's the comments.
Like, I got one more year.
I got one more year for this thing.
Listen.
Do I not pray for that or do I pray for it?
I was like 37 out of nowhere, just out of nowhere. 30. So I know that was me being funny, but it's true.
Mhm.
Like it wasn't something I ever could imagine would have happened. I just like. I'm dead ass, y'all. I'm dead ass. And some
So wait,
relationship.
that's manifestation, girl. The what I'm about to put in.
The universe.
It's not manifestation, but what it is there's things that you can't see that will come to you. Like your ass, your fat ass is on its way. There are things that you can't see about yourself, but but give yourself grace because I was being funny.
I digress.
But growth comes in all of its forms. And see what I did there? But there's no limitations to what you can accomplish. And getting closer to spirit, getting closer to source, loving yourself more. But those boundaries, this is the one thing if I give you guys any advice ever, say no to say yes. The more I kept telling the universe no, better kept coming. Not good enough, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. And every time I said no, something better showed up. If it doesn't feel right, feel like you're settling, if it feels like it's not good enough for you, say that. Tell the universe, give it back. And I promise you, with patience, better comes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So I have one more question for you guys. And I'm going to let you guys ask me a question. And then we will call it a night and drink some Baileys, and some Casamigos.
There we go. Chocolate milk.
Some Boukli. Some Boukli. And some rosé. Okay. So the title of the book is Real Life, Real Love. And I asked Rashaan this question, the last podcast, which you guys haven't seen because we just recorded it right before you guys came here, right? So it's not physically out in real time yet, right? But I asked him this question and he had a very difficult time answering. How do you define love? And we're starting off with you.
Why me?
You were there.
I was trying to think. So what? What was the question?
wait.
Now you acting like boss.
Earlier? What do I?
Why do I define what?
Oh God.
Think about your answers. How do you define love? So, because we're so quick to be like,
can we hear
I
an example?
love him. He loves me.
Well, clearly I don't know because
I'm in love with this person. I love it. How do you actually define love? What does it mean to you? What do you expect of someone by way of feelings, not by way of action? What do you expect from someone by way of feelings that you want for them to be able to say, I love you?
That's a quick question.
Yes.
Are we talking in love or are we just talking love? And that love could be from
If you have a differentiation between the two, then you can express that in your answer.
And explains, right?
You know?
Lord.
I'm more so, from my curiosity, I'm more so talking about in love, in a love relationship. I'm not necessarily talking about from parent to child or a familial type of love or a platonic type of love. I'm more so, but in your own definition, there may not be a difference between the two. So I have to allow you to answer it in whichever way you choose to answer it.
Well,
What's the question again?
I know,
How
right?
do you define love?
I remember
And I want you guys to ask yourself.
Yeah, that's a deep question.
And it's a deep question, but it's the most obvious.
It is.
Of all questions.
Because we use the
way
word
that
so
we
freely.
throw that word around
Freely.
every day, all day.
I
But do
want
people?
to hear what they have to think. Like, put your answers in the chat.
Comment below.
Yeah.
But,
Right,
no, I got you. I was just laughing. Yeah.
Don't come for me, okay?
That's a great question.
Comment below.
Tag, I gotta go first. Okay. I remember telling you that I was in love. And I remember you saying, would you take a bullet for that person? I gotta die. And I said, hell no. She was like,
You're not in love.
So for me, taking that and everything else that I believe in, obviously it's a feeling. Oh God. It's a feeling that matches an action to me. I'm gonna be like boss and take the shortcut. But I feel like it's something that you can't describe.
Stop it. Stop that push. Talk about.
How you about to feel my answer?
Too much. Remember we just put a pause on you and come back. Come back. Yeah, go ahead.
Alright, I'll go.
No, she took a bite of your answer. Go.
No, I'm not. I promise I won't. I won't copy you. Go ahead. Come back. Spin the block.
So are you good with? All right, come on.
Yeah.
Spin the block.
See, I started with you intentionally.
I know.
Right?
Yo.
Okay, Choka.
But
Damn.
So I think being in love or loving somebody, to me, it's two different things. Love, you can love anybody.
That wasn't the question.
No, I know.
Oh.
She did say differentiate. I'm getting there. Okay, being in love, right?
So hostile.
I know.
Because don't mess up my train of thought.
She was working over there. No, she was working just that. So no.
Don't fuck up my shit.
Like, that's what I was gonna say.
Go ahead.
Okay, being in love, I think it's a want, it's a need, it's a choice, it's lust, passion, it's consumption, right? Like that person just consumes your entire day, your mind, your soul. I think it's somebody that it's always running in the background, whether it's your thought, your heart, whatever, and then peeks throughout the day. It's that need that you want to check in on them. You want to make sure everything's okay. You want to make things better for them. You want to be that person for them. You want to be everything.
They're like your common denominator.
Yes. Right. You don't see a future without the minute. You would take a bullet for them. Their happiness and their being is just as important as yours, if not slightly more important, right? Just the thought of them makes you smile.
He was like, damn, she's getting an A. A D plus by comparison.
I think I was gonna say that.
I hate it.
So that's the last thing I was saying. It's I don't know. It's in your soul. Like you love them with your soul. And them being in pain or them being anything less hurts your soul.
Yes. I love that.
Okay.
I do. Your turn. I love that, and I agree.
Yeah.
Not what was the question.
Just ask it one more time. So
I will. I just want to say something about what Shilpa said. Where you said that basically that it's like all consuming. You know? For me, like when I'm asked that question, part of my answer, which is a lengthy answer, right? Go figure.
I'm like, are you answering me?
Right? But part of it that kind of I connected with when you said what you said is that for me, when you're in love with someone, it just constantly hovers.
Yes, all constantly running in the background.
It constantly hovers. You know, for me, there is no decision. There is no moving throughout this world without that person being a part of it. If not physically, even in spirit, because he occupies my mind.
Right.
Nah, stop it.
Oh, we don't know what you're in.
I was there. All right, ask the question again.
What is? I'll make it more simple for you.
Ew.
Oh, I didn't mean it like that. Maybe the basic
Basic bitch.
How do you define love? Or being in love?
So for me,
Don't take that toenail all of a sudden. So she got sophisticated.
So for
all of a
me,
sudden. Go ahead, Chris.
you go.
You go? I'll go.
Wait.
Nah, she got it.
So
Because think about it, Ingrid. Think about it, right? We're joking and everything, right? But how can you expect, think about this, how can you expect to receive love from the person that you feel as though you're in love with without even knowing what your expectation is?
Speak to my soul. That's true.
You can't even identify your own
Heartbeat's going up.
Yo, you see this? My heart is racing.
Her watch is like, hold on, bitch. Her watch is like, hold on,
No,
bitch. What's going on?
this be sleep at this time.
Her phone, her
I'm
watch
like,
is this bitch is having a heart
How
attack.
can you expect something when you actually have
No
no
expectation.
solid expectation? And furthermore, how can you realize that you're not getting it if you don't know what it is?
Before you answer, can I just say,
Go ahead. Say
no,
She said, please.
Hurry up before.
you said that's key because sometimes, not even not knowing, sometimes I expect the other to give me that feeling so then I can define it, I guess, under their terms.
Right.
And that just made me realize that by you saying that my definition is dependent on how that
you
person
feel
makes
about
me
me.
feel. And then I can go and say, oh, I love this person
Right.
because they give me that feeling that I feel like I'm missing. And that goes back to our last podcast with us, when you say, I'm at peace with me. So, and I'm whole. I think that, I don't think I'm there yet. So I think that it's hard for me to
Do you
answer that
realize how powerless that is?
now. Yeah. Saying it out loud. That's deep. That's scary, actually, because that's giving someone else soul power.
Soul power.
Forget what you're giving. It's what you're taking away, which is nothing for yourself. And it's your world.
And
It's just your world.
We're trained to be powerless.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's crazy how I can feel powerful in so many other aspects of my life.
But maybe that's the reason why. Maybe that's why you exert so much power, because you're compensating. It's like the scale, you know, and you're not getting here and it's tipping that way.
I can answer why you married.
No. Let me get this out, good girl. So, as independent, right, that I feel that I am, you know, aside from the work that I got to put in for myself, as we spoke about, I've never felt that I needed a man. Is it nice to have a man that loves you, that wants to protect you, that makes you feel like the princess or the queen? For me, love has been, I'm here because I want you, not because I need you. It is having somebody that I can put before myself, aside from my child, because I'm still a new mom. Well, I guess I'm still considered a new mom. But having somebody that when I wake up, I want to know that, you know, he's having a good morning so far. Somebody that I feel connected with. Somebody that I feel brings the best version of me to the table. You know, it's having somebody there that I don't want to take a bullet for him, but I don't want him to take a bullet for me. No, like I don't want neither one of us to suffer.
Yes. I can't.
But
Yo.
I would want to put myself in okay. Like if we were gonna get hit by a car, hit me, don't hit him.
That's the same
feel
thing.
that way.
You a bold-faced
You lying now. It sound good.
Question if it meant that you would get away, if it gave you the extra oomph to get out.
No, I'm gonna push the both of us out the way. I don't want neither one of us to be hurt in this process. It's like ride or die, but why we gotta die?
You might jump in front of the bus for Cameron. You jumping in front of the bus for Jason?
I'm not talking about Jay. I'm talking about the question was it about my current? No, it's
Okay. You're just talking about in general.
I'm talking about in general. Jason just happens to be because You see, now you gotta fuck me up.
Wait,
This is mind fucking. This is the mind bleeping I was talking about. This is it.
I didn't say nothing. I was listening.
This is it. I was listening.
I just say what I said, that you need it, right? I didn't mean like physically or like that you need somebody to do stuff for you, right? You're totally independent, but the need of it is the feeling that you get from that person, that energy, the connection. Like you crave that person. You need the attention, the reassurance. You just need that feeling.
But is that always defined as love?
You see, but
I think everyone has their own individual.
but you see, so
of love. I don't think that there's a
no.
you see, so if I talk about my current situation, and let's talk about when I was like deeply in love before like the drama and the bullshit or whatever, it was that nurturing feeling I got from him. It was him wanting to know if I was okay, if I ate today, feeling safe, feeling protected. That feeling of my man will fuck you up. Don't play with me.
Right.
It's that. It's knowing that I have somebody that loves me more than I love myself. It's having somebody that wants to make sure that I'm good, and vice versa. The same thing goes for me. I want to make sure that he's always going to be good. That together we're great. It's the connection. It's the intimacy. You know, I don't want to confuse love with sex, but I think I've had this conversation. It's probably only with Gia where, and this might be, it's not raunchy. It's I think what a lot of women go through, even in sex. I've had sex with numerous men, right?
She's worldly.
No, I'm not.
She's
but
from the world.
I'm from the world, right?
Yeah.
But okay, so if we talk about in sex, right? We talk about like having orgasms. I never knew what an orgasm was through penetration until my current situation, my current relationship, because it's not a situation.
Right.
I don't want to diminish what I have. He deserves that much, right? I've had sex with men and I was too busy putting on a show, wanting to feel sexy, trying to put on the best, but never getting anything out of it.
That's actually in the book.
Yeah.
Never being pleased. And we've had this conversation. I put on a show all day and then it's like.
Real talk. So speaking to what you're talking about. So she told me about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
years ago, this is how you know I'm not lying. Right.
Years ago, yeah. And I was like, you've never had an orgasm through penetration. And she was like, nope. I was like, you're going to have an orgasm tonight. She was like, what you talking about? I was like, this is what you have to do, you know? And this is what you have to focus on.
Because it's mental.
Now, you know, all these comments are going to be like, yeah, spill the tea.
Right.
No, but listen.
I'm still waiting for her to tell me the games to play from last time.
No. Go ahead, finish.
No.
So we had this conversation and she was right. While in it, I was thinking about her. It's so weird. But not like in a weird way. I told you.
Not naked or anything.
No, but I told you this too. Like,
I know.
I thought about her and I had to put, okay, so Gia said it's mental. And I had to put down the theatrics.
Right. Just being
Yes.
Forget the show. Forget the wanting to look a certain way. My silhouette. Forget all of that.
You know she means her silhouette too.
You know.
Perfect selfie.
And be in the moment. Just connect.
Right.
And
Feel the energy.
sure as shit. I had my first orgasm. And I called her like, oh my God. She was like, bitch. I'm probably still with him because of that. Like,
yeah.
And then it was like every single day. Like it wasn't just a one, because I'm like, oh, maybe it's just a one. It's been every single day. Like I never had to fake it. It was consistent. It was a connection. It was love. It was the passion.
A whole podcast now.
Yeah.
It was the passion. It was the connection. That for me was love. This is a man. I love him. I can connect with him on a level that I've never connected with anyone else.
I think people that are hearing you say that might ask themselves or wish that someone here asked, do you think, right, that at that point may have been being what is popularly known as
Lust?
Stigmatized.
Stigmatized.
See?
I was about to say it.
Like
Did
once
you love him or were you stroked?
yeah. But it wasn't about, he was never lacking.
No.
Right.
A lot of times when a woman can't have an orgasm, it's because of her.
She can't get out of her head.
She can't get out of her
Right.
head.
So yeah, it was never him.
Stigmas, a bunch of stuff. We'll talk about that.
It was never him. It was literally it was our connection from the day that we met. And how he described it, the first within the first 30 minutes, I was his girlfriend in his head. That was powerful to me. I'd never had nobody say no shit like that to me. He was making dates with me before I could make a date with anybody else. Cause that was my year to
Be outside.
we was outside.
Yeah,
You know, it was right. And I fell in love with this man that made me feel wanted and made me feel loved and made me feel like you're not going to get the opportunity to meet nobody else. You are going to be mine. You are worthy of somebody to love you, to make you feel good. Not just emotions, but like sexually. Give me a different perspective. Like I wanted to have his baby within the first year or so. Never wanted kids. And I told her, I was like, I want a piece of him and a piece of me to make one. Did I not say that to you?
Mm-hmm. You did.
That's how I knew I was in love. I wanted a piece of the both of us running around. I wanted a family. I wanted things and a family that I never thought I would want. I thought that it was me having a career, being successful, and traveling the world. No response. I didn't want a dog. That for me was my life. I was content with that. That defined Ingrid. That was me as an individual. I met him and everything from there changed for me. So that for me was a definition. That is what love is. That, yeah.
Somebody sees something in you that you don't see in yourself and makes you strive to be that person through their eyes. Right?
However, the last podcast, she fucked me up because she said there can't be no connection if there is no respect. Because that last podcast that we have, I don't have to watch it to replay it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, because there's certain things that connected with you.
I was attacked. I felt attacked. But no, right. Because
respect came after the connection.
Right.
You know, it all came after, but it was like, how do you still love somebody that can disrespect you? How can you still have that connection if you feel unwanted? You can't be loved and wanted, but then there's other people intertwined in that relationship.
So I think, but that's why it goes back to being in love and loving somebody, right? Like you can fall in and out of love with the same person over your lifetime with that person, right? Because you start off being in love. It turns into love where I don't want no harm for you. I want the best for you. You are my person. All the good things. And then you have like the lust, the want, the need, the fun, the intimacy, the connection, the energy that kind of comes in and out in different blips, right? So you can fall in love with, and I think I've spoken this with some of my friends, or even on social media. You can fall in and out of love with the same person over and over again, but still have that same baseline. And it's about finding and reconnecting over and over again. So with you guys in that situation, I'm sure he still loved you, but there was a glitch in that connection at that moment where he felt out of love and thought he could do better somewhere else, right? And you
I don't think he could ever do better. And no shade. And no shade. And this is not something that I'm saying just because of a camera. I feel like that and I could tell him.
And so does he.
You know, and I'm not trying to make myself, and I think he feels like that also. I think it had more to do with him than it ever had to do with me. But it took me a while to understand that.
It usually does, if not always does.
It took
A person can be lacking something that you may want, but you make a decision as an individual with or without integrity regarding how you're going to handle the fact that there is something that you may want to fulfill that isn't being fulfilled. So we don't ever make anyone cheat or
And one of my
disrespect us.
male friends recently said that they're like, guys will cheat because they want to cheat. Because that's it. That was the sentence. They want to cheat.
I think they cheat because they can.
It's nothing about
Yeah.
something about their partner, nothing about who they're with. It's because they want to do it. They make that choice. They make that decision.
Well, the way that I look at it, and we talk about it, right, in the book, but how do you put it? You can have, now, we can look at some of the world's most iconic and beautiful women. And most of them, if not all of them, have been famously cheated on. We're talking Halle Berry, Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, quick to bring.
Beyonce.
She has.
I mean, those for me are our like three
top
beauty
like
icons.
Yeah.
And not just beautiful outside,
Inside
beautiful
too.
inside.
Right.
Like wholly beautiful women. And I'm just using that as an example that, and I don't even like to say that, right? But I think that might resonate with some women that might be watching, especially younger women. When you're cheated on, it's not because you weren't anything enough.
Right.
It's because a person doesn't have the maturity or the wherewithal to deal with wants, desires, options, etc. So when I think about it, I kind of look at it this way. You can have, what's my favorite cake, Benz?
Sapienza.
My Sapienza.
Strawberry. Fresh strawberry.
Sounds like that strawberry cake.
Fresh whipped cream.
What up, y'all? It's
She'll buy
DJ
that for
Envy, and this
you,
portion of the
'cause you
Casey
wanna
Crew
eat it for
podcast
your
is brought to you by Ritual. Now, I use a multivitamin every day, and I need a multivitamin that when I take, doesn't hurt my stomach because I don't usually eat right away in the morning. Well, Ritual is perfect for me. Now, sugars, GMOs, synthetic fillers, artificial colorants, and animal byproducts are all ingredients you might find in a multivitamin, right? Not Ritual, though. It's clean, vegan friendly. Its a formula is made with key nutrients and forms your body can actually use to fill those gaps in your diet. So no shady extras. Their fresh tasting, delayed release capsules are designed to dissolve later in less sensitive areas for the stomach so you can take them with or without food. How dope is that? Now it's now available for women, men, and teens. Ritual multivitamins are scientifically developed to help support different life stages. Your multivitamins are delivered right to your door every month with free shipping, all right? So you deserve to know what's in your multivitamin. That's why Ritual is offering listeners 10% off during your first 3 months. So try it out, all right? Visit ritual.com/CaseyCrew to start your ritual today. That's ritual.com/CaseyCrew.
Because they weren't worthy enough, good enough, pretty enough, had a nice enough body, or smart enough, funny enough, charismatic enough, or anything.
But you know that there's men out there that would make them feel as if they weren't enough, just to cover up their own indiscretion and their own insecurity. It'll be the man to be like, well, you ain't fucking me enough, so and throw digs at the female. It's planting the little seeds.
But that's also mind bleeping.
It is.
And it's in another section that's not even in the mind bleeping part of the book, where, you know, we're breaking down what a man has to do to regain that trust, that love, and the want for companionship from the woman that he offended. And that's one of the things, like, you have to acknowledge the hurt that you've caused and the fact that you have inadvertently made this woman feel less than just by your action. You didn't have to say a word to her. Your action alone alone may have made her feel less than.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got women out there having surgeries to change how they look because they feel as though maybe their body
Isn't it as good
wasn't
as
good enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Sick of the same old breakfast? Well, here's something new.
You know?
Just egg. Scrambles, cooks, and tastes just like the eggs you're used to, but it's made from plants. If you have 2 chicken eggs with breakfast, that's already 124% of your recommended cholesterol for the day. The science is pretty clear. Plant-based diets can have a dramatic improvement in everything from heart health to life longevity. Just egg tastes and cooks just like the conventional eggs. Put it in an omelet, scramble, French toast, banana bread, whatever you need to do, whatever you use your eggs for. Just egg is also better for the planet, using 93% fewer carbon emissions and 98% less water than a conventional egg. It takes 53 gallons of water to produce a single egg. Yes, 53 gallons. Now you can find Just Egg pretty much anywhere, at most grocery stores, including Whole Foods, Walmart, and Kroger, and on Amazon Prime now or Instacart. Just Egg, a better egg for you and your family. Now thank you to Just Egg. It's a great product and from a company with a great mission. Just Egg.
You got something there.
Now I'm in love. Because you, with that sapiosexual, you've mind fucked me, mind bleeped me.
In a good way.
In a good way. You've stimulated me in a way. So now my interest is piqued. I'm in love. When it comes to love, actual love, whether it's platonic or romantic, it's about safety. Is where I'm at, where I feel like I'm at, where it feels. So for me, I would risk or give up my safety for those I love. I would throw myself willingly in front of a bus for my sister, my niece, my nephews, my friends, some of them, in a heartbeat.
Some of them. Yeah, know who you are.
In a heartbeat. Because I love them and I see their value so much. And then the return of that safety is being with a man. It's like, I'm home. I'm comfortable. I feel safe. And that safety, being so independent and so in control and so in charge, is like, I'm safe to just let go. And what I felt from that safety, to me, safety means safety. Okay, I can say I'm safe with you. You're not going to hurt me. I can be myself. I can trust you with my mind, my body, my money, safety. But what I realized, and this is now the future goal, is that in the search for safety in love is really freedom. It sounds like a juxtaposition. It sounds like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You want to be in commitment. But through that commitment, you find freedom. The freedom to be able to have an orgasm because you're not so far in your head worrying about things and people and situations that aren't even in the room. The freedom to be myself with my imperfections. The freedom to speak my mind and say who I am and what I want and what I need. And not minimizing the things that hurt me or having the difficult questions. The freedom. I am free to love my job and to want to travel and still love you. And you love me in return. I'm free to say, I like my body. It's not perfect. I could probably get surgery, afford it, but I'm going to stay this way. Can you take me that way? The freedom to show up and be your true, authentic self and have the safety in return. So for me, the definition of love is safety through freedom.
Or freedom through safety.
And then the willingness to give up either.
Right.
I will compromise my own freedom. I'll stay home for you. I'll compromise my own safety. I will take that bullet for you.
I like that. That was beautiful.
Wow.
All right.
That was all of the above.
Nah, she cheated.
D.
Don't know. It's your go.
Oh.
She's like,
She's looking at the audience.
Are we going commercial break?
She's looking at the
Commercial
audience.
break?
Listen, comment below so she can look at your answers.
Oh,
And then
here you go.
the YouTube version, yeah.
I'm trying to decide if we're going to turn this into 2 podcasts or just make it one long ass podcast.
400 hours.
You know,
One
we can
long
never.
one.
We
One
can.
long one.
We need a
Yeah.
producer.
See, this is part of the
We need a
Casey trap.
producer. Somebody who's.
But
This is part of the Casey trap. You're
We're in
right.
the 5-hour mark now.
But this is how we all. It's the 5-hour conversation in the back of the car.
Seriously.
in the hotel
But
room in
I
Atlanta.
feel like
in the car
everybody
with
in
the
this
stars.
room and hopefully people that are watching will walk away from this
Oh,
long ass
definitely.
conversation with things that could be
Gems, yeah.
potentially
Absolutely.
life changing
Everyone
and
said they
love.
were glad it was so long. No
Yeah.
one was like,
Oh no, I mean I think so.
I stopped reading comments. I can't do it.
It's actually great comments, though.
They're good
for the most
comments.
part, yeah.
My experience wasn't the same, so I know you
excuse
do
me.
it.
What's your
That's
definition?
right. Can we come back to it?
You're the last one.
I mean, like, at another date.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Let's
Let's dig a little bit.
Yeah.
Boss,
Right?
I truly
Boss.
understand what you go through. I truly understand it now.
It's the feeling I can't describe.
I can't describe. Okay, listen.
It's the feeling.
Okay, is it fair to say I define love? Oh God, it's gonna sound so bad. I define love through fairy tales.
Mm.
I think I've always wanted to live up to the Disney
The
stories,
Cinderella.
the Cinderellas, Beauty and the Beast,
Beauty and
Aladdin,
the Beast.
all of those things that I've watched. To me, growing up, I was like, wow,
The Prince Charming.
he is going to be like that. Flying on capes and, red carpets and save me from anything that I might be going through that I don't speak about. Because I don't really talk about anything that's probably going through my mind, or how I feel. And I think that obviously I cover that up. But to me, I define it as someone coming to save me. And it's kind of, to say it out loud sounds crazy.
No, it doesn't at all.
Crazy.
It sounds crazy.
relatable.
Perfect and real.
It sounds
Sounds
relatable.
crazy.
I mean,
Super
who doesn't? I
relatable.
mean, honestly, who
Right.
doesn't want to be saved from the pitfalls of the
Who doesn't
world?
want the fairy
Yeah.
tale?
Who doesn't want
Yeah.
that? I want to be in a magic
But
carpet.
there's a reason that
We know.
those stories exist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fairy tales in the rom-coms, the fairy tales in the Disney movies, like all those exist for a reason. And that's what we've all been brought up as. And we just kind of redefined it along the way by
Mm.
learning experiences. And like she said, you haven't gone through all those experiences that you may
Right.
do in the next couple of years. So your version of a fairy tale may completely change. So you're gonna
It
pull
hasn't
from
though. That's the
different-
crazy part. Like I still believe in
The fairy tale.
the fairy tale. So
No,
when I'm with
but I
your,
believe that they exist.
when I'm with your kids and I'm
100%.
singing those songs, and you've all watched, I really mean those words. Like to me, that's love through music. Like I feel it.
Mhm.
The lyrics, how those, like they sing to each other and how they feel. Like it's truly a feeling. And I'm like, dang, I want to feel like that.
It's how
one
they
day.
look at each other
Yeah.
in those in the fairy tale.
Fairy
It's how
tales,
they look at each
movies,
other.
movie. Yeah.
It's like there's nobody
But
else around.
like-
It just
It describes.
It does actually
Euphoric.
describe
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
feeling
the
that they're
feeling.
feeling. Yeah.
you can see it.
So I mean, that's
But
kind of
I don't think that that's weird or strange because I do feel as though relationships like that do exist.
Yeah.
Where like I do still like get excited when my phone rings and it says Rashaan's iPhone.
yeah. Like you and Boss to me are a fairy tale. So it resonates watching you guys and seeing the movies and the Disney channels and all that I watch. As soon as he gets off the Breakfast Club, he calls you
He's
all the way home. As soon as he gets to the house, goes upstairs, see you, talks to you about his day that you've already heard about. Then you guys go on about the day with the kids, but then it always circles back to, what are we doing tonight? Are we watching this movie? It's like obsession, but in a healthy way. And I
Now
think,
it's in a healthy way. Yeah.
and it's like, wow, that's power. It's magic. You can't describe magic. It's a feeling. And I think that's where it's described in fairy tales. And honestly, from what I see from you guys, I think it's indescribable. And you'd be like, yo, if you can't give me that,
I don't want it.
But you hear when I asked her, I was like, what do you tell people who didn't meet their soulmate at 15?
And she said something real.
People are
Don't-
gonna get
aren't
And
aren't deserving.
And that hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
And not obviously from how you said it, it's just like, dang, if I am this good person, if I work this hard, if I do good, why can't I? Why?
Because it's not in your timing. And that, for me, that's the real answer. Like, Vince, think about it. You wanted a job that allowed you to have certain freedoms, right? Business freedoms, financial freedoms.
To buy this house.
To do a myriad of things, right? You got that job. What did you want? You wanted your own house for a long time. Within a year of you wanting that, you got that house. Most people can't do that. You understand what I'm saying? How did those things come about? When you think about it, like real talk, right? You were coaching Logan, you were coaching Madison. A few times we were like, hey, Vince, come out. Rashaan's DJing at so-and-so, whatever, come out. You came out. Then we became cool. Then we became cooler. And I'm like, wow, this girl is a good person.
Right.
This girl is a genuine, honest, thorough, and beautiful person. And I said to Rashaan, I'm like, listen, she has a job that she's not 100% complete in.
You're at the law firm, right?
Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I think you should think about her being your assistant. You know? And at first, like, he was like, nah.
No.
Because we already had a relationship.
Right.
And he's like, once you mix business with friendship, it just goes downhill. It's not a good idea. Expectations get blurred. It's just, I don't like those blurred lines. I don't think it's a good idea. And I'm like, I know you don't think it's a good idea, but yeah, that's what you need to do. That's what you need to do. And, you know, we talked about it. And it all spurred from you being this beautiful person. And then as a result of that, and that relationship, and then the business opportunity, and then the freedoms that you have, you know, to not just be his assistant, like you're partners with him on certain things, and you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's all because of the good that is you and what you deserve. God said, here.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I feel like is going to happen in a relationship.
Right.
You wanted that house. You wanted that job. You wanted to travel. You wanted certain things. You got all of that. This is just another part of your life that God is just waiting to fulfill.
Would you be this upset if you knew that next year the love of your life was coming along?
Look at the difference.
No. I mean,
look, because in your head, you're not worried about the reality of it. You're worried about the figment of timing, perception. You're in fear. You're in fear of it not happening. But what if you said to yourself, look at the perfect timing of God, and you're not going to resent your husband. You're not going to resent your children, because you got to start a business, got to travel the world, you got to grow your career, you got to watch your son do the things he's doing. You got to manifest all of these amazing things for and by yourself. And then the most perfect love came along. If you knew that, if you had the foresight of that, then you would be like, yeah, this is exactly what I would have planned. If somebody would tell me next year, or someone told me I had 10 years to have another kid, a kid, I don't have a kid. 10 years to have a kid, and I have another 10 years to be on my bullshit. Yeah, sign me up. You know what I mean? It's the fear of nothing that has anything to do with you and your beautiful spirit. And you have to cut ties with that fear, because there's no time limit on happiness and joy and love. There's no time limit on that. So you're afraid that you're running out of time for it. And if you just focus on the here and the now, and I see it in your face, you love what you do. You love being a Ben's the boss. You
big body Benz.
Big body. You love making the money. You love being that beautiful woman that sucks the air out of the room. You love it, enjoy it. Don't wish away your good todays because you're afraid of what might not come tomorrow. Because remember I was saying when you had that, I was like, that's not the goal.
Right.
It's also not the goal. You're a prize. Somebody's lucky to have you. But change your mindset right now. Because if that fear chases everything away, especially.
Well, what it does is
that fear chases
it causes
away.
you to make bad decisions
Right.
out of the desire
To have
for the
something.
life that you want.
Yeah.
It puts you in a position of desperation and settling.
All based on fear.
And Bish, I told you about your manifestations. You know that I think that your manifestations are real than a lot.
I'm about to get one of her sages that she be doing
because even with everything that happened, you manifested that bad boy, and you had to go through it to get to where you are now and to learn from it, right? Like you can't just. If you would have had your fairy tale right off the bat, you may not. That might not have been the right one, but you would have been so engulfed in it that you were just settling for it.
Imagine your appreciation level too.
Right.
When it shows up after all this, imagine you're gonna care for it in the right way.
And you'll know
you're not gonna take it for granted.
Right.
You're not gonna be flippant like next one.
And it'll be like, oh, so this is how it's supposed to be. I thought that was supposed to be it. But this is how it's supposed to be. I'm not supposed to feel half the shit that I felt with that one. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I definitely think with you, just like every talks about energies and, all that stuff, it's definitely timing. And it's going to happen.
And one of the pitfalls of the way that your mind has approached it is the fact that you can't define love for yourself.
Right.
So that knowing that now should be evidence to you that you have to change your perception and the importance that it maintains in your life.
You hit the nail on the head, and this is something that's going to help you. It's intention, right? You said you wanted a house within a year. Bam, house. You wanted a career change. Bam, career change. So set the intention and believe that it's possible. Material things are easiest to manifest. Relationships, that's a little harder. But you are powerful. We've seen it. You're powerful. Take away the fear of it all. Put the love into it. Thank you, God, for giving me the opportunity to do all these things before you brought me my love. Thank you. I'm so grateful that I was able to chart these courses and become the woman I am. Whole. And in love with me so that I could be the best wife and mother. Look at it, skew it positive. There's two emotions. There's love and there's fear. Anxiety, depression, desperation, it all comes from fear. Joy, peace, happiness, it's all from love. Let go of the fear of it all. Because you have the rest of your life. And you are gorgeous. And you are kind. And you are smart. And you is important.
But you can feel all that all of you, right? Like I believe manifestation, but with you, I've never that ocean exercise that I gave you. I've never done it. I haven't felt the need to do it, even though I probably should. But with you, I was like, I need you to do this. The bracelet, I saw it. I was like, I need her to have this, right? I believe in the same manifestation as you do, but with you, you have that power. I can't look at your face.
Gosh, dang. Sorry, guys. That was nice.
No, resonate?
It's going to happen.
Thank you.
Okay. So, before we end this podcast this evening, I'm going to open up the floor for you guys to ask anything that you'd like to ask of me or of each other as it pertains to the book or contents, anything that you've learned or anything. What questions are you guys left
there was
with?
one part in the book that hit, there was a lot of parts in the book that hit home, but one part was when you talked about right fighting instead of fighting or arguing to understand, right? And that was something that happened in my relationship. Maybe, that might be one of the things that is a continuous cycle in my relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We fight, we do right fight.
Mm-hmm.
And
You fight to win.
Yeah.
Not to understand. Mm-hmm.
To the point where even my mom even said that. Because he was like, call your mom. You always do this, you always do that. I'm like, all right, I'll call her. So mom was like, no, I don't think you do this. But you both always argue to win. Like you just yell just to win.
Right. It's not to gain common ground.
Right. Just to prove a point or just to
win,
essentially.
That's all that it is.
Right. So at what point or what made you guys understand that was what was going on and that needed to change in order to be productive? Because it has a little bit of ego in it too, right?
It's all about ego.
Right. Right.
It's all about
how
ego.
Did you? Because we know he has ego.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are competitive. You say it all the time. You guys fight. Are competitive across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point did you say, okay, this is what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to define it as right fighting, and we need to not do this anymore.
It was one day. I remember the day that it occurred to me. We lived in our previous house. So we've been in the house that we're moving from for 16 years. So it might have been about 17 years ago that I realized that this is what we were doing. We got into a fight and there was just no holds barred. And Rashaan would say, and through recollection, he can claim now that I'm a tough cookie, right? And I can take a lot. I could take a shotgun, and then pop up like what? That's just my personality. I can take it. So we descended into a relationship where when we had a disagreement, it was about winning, and the steps that both of us would take to win were below the belt. And it didn't just stop at being right. It descended lower. It became a situation where we tried to hurt each other. And because he thought that I was so resilient and so unaffected and so unemotional on this particular day, and times before, but it hit me that day like, oh, this is what's happening. He went for my jugular. Like, he just wanted to see me bleed out. Like
Finish her.
Finish her. And I was like, damn, it's all that, and it occurred to me. It dawned on me. It was like a ton of bricks that fell out of the sky and hit me that made me assess what was going on to be able to say, we argue and fight to win. We are not, like I said before, trying to understand one another. We are not trying to find a common ground. We are not trying to resolve, fix, move on, learn, gain, grow, evolve. None of that. None of that. It was to be like, yeah, and what? I told you. If you would have just done what I said, had you listened, if you were paying attention, it was rooted in just pure condescension. And for him, I think it was difficult because, it's going to sound crazy, but I'm going to say it because it's my truth. Take it how you take it. I'm more thoughtful in the things that I do. He's more sporadic.
Right. Yep.
Which puts me in a position where between Rashaan and I, I'm usually right.
Yes.
You relate, right?
Yes.
I'm usually right. And that was very hard. It was very hard for him to swallow that.
Right.
Especially when it was like time after time after time. So I felt like at one point he's just swinging at the air. You know what I mean? And if I was standing close enough, I would get hit.
Yep.
So I realized it then. And then it took a lot of, you okay?
We're just trying to figure out what's vibrating.
Okay. It took a lot.
Wasn't me.
It took a lot of talking and undoing.
Yeah.
Once I brought it to his attention, and he was able to say, "Hey, yeah, that is what we're doing," but it was a hard habit to break, and it took years to break because it was a habit. It was damn near part of our DNA.
Yeah.
And that evolution did happen. And slowly but surely, we were able to break out of that. Not to say that it doesn't creep its little way back in every now and then, because it is, again, part of who we are, ego-driven, etc. But when it happens, I'll say to him, like, "You're right fighting." I'm sure you've heard me say that to him. Or he'll say, "I think you might be right fighting." And I'll have to take a beat, like, "Am I?"
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not. I'm right, actually. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not right fighting. I'm just right.
I'm just right.
I'm not right fighting. I'm just right. I'm kidding. But, and we got over that hump. We got over that.
So Tuesdays at 7 p.m. at your house? we'll be there for our weekly lessons.
Anybody else have any questions?
I mean, you answered them all in the book.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
That one question that I needed to hear. We went into that in depth.
Well, that is good. I don't have any more questions because we got to wrap.
Wait, so I have something that can wrap this up really good, and it is a sentence from the book, so you can go ahead and get it. In one of the chapters, I think it might be part of the New Deal, the sentence is, "The longer we live in this world and consume experiences, the more we'll grow and evolve." And I think that sentence, I underlined it in my notes taking. It's powerful because it speaks to your own self as well as a relationship, friendship, work, like anything, right? The more you absorb these experiences, the more you grow and evolve and learn from it. Like you said, learning from, like in the last podcast, you can share it to somebody else that lives in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I thought that was really powerful. The book is just, even if I didn't know you guys, it's so well written and has so many great gems for anybody, any part of their life, whether they're young, older, in relationships, single, married, divorced, situation, anything. And you guys keep things so vague, but at the same time so specific that anybody can relate to anything.
Right.
So I think it's amazing.
You see, for me, and I hadn't picked up a book in like 10 years. No exaggeration. Like, in about 10 years, I have not picked up a book. And this was the first book that I've read in a long time. And it was tough, not because it's a tough read, but I had to get myself back into that groove of not reading and falling asleep because it's just so soothing. As I was reading it, I felt myself in every chapter. There was a little bit of me in every chapter because
you can pull from.
I'm a woman. I know her. We've had these conversations. I felt like reading this book, aside from like them answering like questions from emails and stuff like that, like I felt I knew the book. Like I've heard, I enjoyed the read because I know them and I could hear her. It was her voice.
Yep.
It was Rashaan's voice. It was her mother. Even though, so when I met Miss Norma, she already had dementia, but it's the same voice. It's the same. I didn't need the pictures. I can see her. I see Gia. Even like crisscross applesauce, the conversations, and it was the book was it was vivid. It was real, and I enjoyed it not because it's who she is to me. It's because it's legitimately a good book, and I am a person with a numerous of situations that I go through, that I've been through, that I am working on. And this helped. this helped on, and I've had conversations with Rashaan and I've asked for his input as a man, and we've had conversations. A lot of times I go for bat for him because she's tough. And I'd be like, leave him alone. Like I go to bat for him. And right?
Yeah.
So
you're his defender.
I definitely
like,
defend.
This book is different only because you guys are in the public eye and you are so real with your podcast, your conversations. You guys kind of just put everything out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no major secrets that you guys keep from your viewers and your fans. So we don't have to be close to you to get the same feeling as they will.
Right.
Because they'll see your voice. They'll hear you just from hearing from the podcast, right? They'll read along with you.
But even if they didn't listen to the podcast, and I think that this book is just a highlight of life.
And it's not
serious.
robotic. I told you, like, it's your experiences, and towards the end, it is almost a self-help book with all the questions and exercise that you put in there.
Right.
But it's not robotic.
Right.
Like, it has actual authenticity to it.
There's so much to gain from reading this book. There's so much self-reflection from reading this book. You don't have to know you personally.
And even know
you don't even have to watch the podcast.
Yeah.
You can read this and say, wow, this has been me. This is me. There's men or women.
Or just judging. People.
Being that person that talked about this.
I
Right.
can forgive.
I've been this person.
I can grow and evolve.
Yep.
Right.
I can become closer with God.
Yeah.
I can have a breakdown and come out on the other side of it.
Yeah.
I can feel everything slipping out of my fingers and
get it back.
Get it back.
Tenfold.
I can find the gray areas. It doesn't. There was a lot of depth.
Yeah. And we still learned about you guys too. So like even with people knowing you, I still learned things about you and Boss that I didn't know about.
Really?
Yeah. There's quite a few that I don't obviously want to give away, but there are some things in there that I was like, wow, one, Boss is crazy as hell. But like besides that,
I was gonna say, if you don't buy the book for no other reason than to hear little Sean feet dangling,
and you got to read it to know what she's talking about.
Right.
And the moments where she's like, we can laugh about it now. Oh, and we did.
Right.
When you're removed from the thing, you're like, okay, my friend's not in pain right now, so we can laugh about it.
You definitely will laugh, cry.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Everything.
Circle, highlight, exclamation point in different parts of the book. There's definitely, it's a good book, man.
I do think that people should read it with a highlighter.
Yes, 100%. Guys.
Like when we were talking about giving out book boxes with, special gifts for different people.
Yeah.
I was thinking about putting a highlighter in there.
Yeah.
100%.
That'd be great.
They're just things that, like we go through life and we hear things like I mentioned one of the things that was said to me, when you know better, you do better. There's certain things that people say or that you read that stand out to you that it can seem so insignificant, but it can really
carry through your life
so much.
Life, even if only by a degree.
Yeah.
But that degree can snowball into bigger things. Bigger
mindset change.
Do you know what I mean?
So I appreciate this book club that we did here because it opened up something in me that I want to continue to read.
Outside of the book.
Read.
I like that.
I wanna continue to grow. And Heather gave me a book, but she didn't give it to me. She told me about a book, and it's called "You Are Badass."
Oh, I've read that.
And so that is my next read that I will be starting, not tomorrow because I'm tired, but the day after. So thank you for sharing, for helping
with the assignment.
Well, but even as a consumer, because I bought the book.
Right.
Yeah.
As a
we all bought it. And then we got our assignment. We were like, oh, okay.
Here I come with
I was like, well, I don't think my book showed up till April 19th.
My response was like, yeah, I bought the book. Just waiting for it to come in. I was like, no. Like this week.
And then it came in a text, and I was like, well,
so even though, I felt like I knew the book, I appreciate it.
For reading again.
It did.
And hopefully it
And-
sparks people to do groups like this.
To want to
Within
talk.
their circles.
Well, that's what I'm hoping that this episode will do. I hope that, women get together. I hope that men get together.
Men and women.
Read the book and then come back and share their thoughts and their commonalities.
Yeah.
And where they hope to evolve to, and look at some of the assignments and look at some of the questions and question themselves and figure out how they want to be better and how they want to make their relationships better, or what they hope for their relationships.
Or what do they need to get out of? Because it's not just about how to make it better, but when do you know that this is just not it? Because it's not just like, well, how do I make it better? How do I push forward? When to say, when to.
Wait, what were you saying?
There's somewhere in there where you say, when do you decide that this is worth fighting for and when it's not?
Absolutely.
And having the strength to leave and know that it's going to be better.
And I'm an avid reader and a little bit of a book snob. And what I found about this book was that it was highly approachable, but still insightful. So while you felt like you could relate on multiple levels from whatever facet of life you're coming from, it didn't feel dumbed down,
right?
But it was approachable. It was digestible. So I felt like anybody at any level could read the book,
and it's an easy read. It's an easy read,
right. and that's not a negative thing.
No,
right.
And what I think is important about this, it's highly approachable for men.
It didn't make it feel
for
like an
men
assignment
to read this, because we will see a book with a couple, a beautiful couple that says real life, real love, and be like, let me put this in my wife's Christmas basket. Like this is a book a man can read, enjoy, learn from, grow from, converse about rather, with his friends. You can you can converse about this, from the people. you could conversate. It's not a word. I'm sorry, y'all. It's just.
But we like it because it's easy.
But you can.
I despise that word.
It's not a word. It's not a word. You can conversation about it. You can converse about it. You can get together with your boys, and it is something you can talk about for real.
Yeah.
Well, I hope, because I get a lot of DMs and emails from men that have done their girlfriends, partners, wives
wrong,
looking for the
dirty,
the clause,
and they're like, "What do I need to do?"
The blueprint, yeah.
How do I dig myself out of this hole? What was the catalyst for you to forgive? Just tell me what I need
read
to
this
do.
book.
I'm gonna do it.
That's it.
It is in there.
It's in there.
It's in there. But it's not a step. It is a step by step, but it means
You have to do
nothing
the work.
if you
If you don't put it,
So they're gonna
yeah.
read the book. They're gonna be like, so what's Rashaan's number? Is he available
I
for
need a sign from
consultation?
God. Right. But thank you, girls, for
Thank you.
reading the book. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you for sharing yourselves with our viewers. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys.
Comment below if you want more group chats, more girl talks.
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know how you feel, because we enjoy this. And I was very reluctant. Don't get me comfortable. Stop it.
I can't reach your legs quick enough. I cannot reach the two of your legs quick enough.
No, because I was reluctant about coming back on this.
They repeated straight.
They annihilated me. This was
The name of the episode is Cluster Bleep.
it was. No, don't go look for it. Don't go look for it.
It is a painful watch. Don't watch it. But in case you're what? It was painful. It's painful. It was.
Anyway, there was nothing wrong with me in the first place.
You're right.
Okay,
You're right.
But however, please let us know if you would like more of this, because we enjoy it and we want you guys involved. We want to answer comments. We want to come back and do this again. And there's the Casey crew with Gia and Rashaan, but we will have more to come, and we will come up with something clever. And I want to do this more often.
We want you to come into
let us know.
Casey trap.
Let us know, because real talk. If you
I'm not being serious. They be laughing.
why do you have a persecution complex? I'm here with you.
Wait, with the shimmy.
With my shimmy. If you find that you've gained anything from our conversation, if you've made it this far, let us know, because if you do, then we'll do more talks like this, but more concise. I think moving forward, I would want to have like maybe one topic.
Yeah.
Cover one
for
topic.
4 years.
Huh?
Yeah, we can talk for 4 years.
Yes, I mean, we can talk forever, but this was more so in book club format.
Yes.
Which, goes on until everybody gets all of their rocks off.
Yeah.
So, and I think that we did. So,
I think we did a better job. We're not speaking over each other. You guys can understand this podcast.
Yeah.
Sorry. We did great.
And I think
excited.
our production was much better
Yes.
this time than it was
Thank you, Eric.
the last
Thank you.
where we were trying to pull it together on the
So
couch.
patient.
So anyway, thank you for rocking with us. We appreciate you guys. This was another episode of the Casey Crew, but with a different crew.
Oh,
Toodles!